And this is Conditions for Intuitive Expertise, A Failure to Disagree by Dan Kahneman and Gary Klein. Dan Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in Behavioral Economics in the year 2000, I believe, for something I disagree with and I'm published on. Little pat myself on the back there. Yeah. Are those IGA? Yeah, those are IGA emotes. You got the In-Game Asylum. That's great. I didn't know, In-Game Asylum, for those who don't know, is a great streamer. I go there sometimes. Those are the IGA In-Game Asylum, whatever they are, war read emotes. And yeah, as I was saying, if you're around at the end, we get to rate the stuff. Of course, you're not obligated to. It's just if you're in chat, it's cool. So we read it, we discuss what's going on in it, and then we rate it. So here we go. And as always, feel free to ask questions along the way. My first time reading it, I will attempt to explain it as best we can. Royal we on that one. In this article, we report on an effort to compare our views on the issues of intuition and expertise, and to discuss the evidence for our respective positions. When we launched this project, we expected to disagree on many issues, and with good reason. One of us, GK, so that's Kahneman, known as Gary Klein, has spent much of his career thinking about ways to promote reliance on expert intuition in executive decision making, and identifies himself as a member of the intellectual community of scholars and practitioners who study naturalistic decision making. The other, Dan Kahneman, has spent much of his career running experiments in which intuitive judgment was commonly found to be flawed. He's identified with the heuristic and biases approach to the field. Yeah, so we've got a naturalistic decision making. So one of them is pro intuition, and the other one is, there's a lot of flaws. We use heuristics and biases, but that's quick and dirty reasoning to decide, but that inherently is flawed. A surprise awaited us when we got together to consider our joint field of interest. We found ourselves agreeing most of the time. Where we initially disagreed, we were usually able to converge upon a common position. Our shared beliefs are much more specific than the commonplace that expert intuition is sometimes remarkably accurate and sometimes off the mark. We accept the commonplace, of course, but we also have similar opinions about more specific questions. What are the activities in which skilled intuitive judgments develops with expertise? Yes, always trust your gut unless you're lumpy and you just ate 4 pounds of kimchi. But it would be so tasty. What are the activities in which experience is more likely to produce overconfidence than genuine skill? Because we largely agree about the answers to these questions, we also favor generally similar recommendations to organizations seeking to improve the quality of judgments and decisions. In spite of all this agreement, however, we find we are still separated in many ways by divergent attitudes, preferences about facts, and feelings about fighting words such as bias. If we are to understand the differences between our respective communities, such emotions must be taken into account. We begin with a brief review of the origins and precursors of the NDM and HB approaches, followed by a discussion of the most prominent points of contrast between them. Next, we present some claims about the conditions under which skilled intuitions develop, followed by several suggestions for ways to improve the quality of judgments and choices. Okay, so what we're doing here, these are psychologists. Without context, we're going to confuse the hell of the YouTube folks. That's fine. I always wonder, we come in, because I'm always looking where to put the, the initial cut, at the beginning of the videos on YouTube. There are some wild things in chat that we're discussing right before, I start talking about the paper. And so sometimes I leave them in, sometimes I cut them out. Sometimes I do that on purpose. Just be I want them to read that little bit of chat right there and be what the fuck is going on with those people? I'm hoping that they say what the fuck is going on with those people and then be let me go look one day. So I think of it as advertising, actually, when we have just completely ludicrous things going on. And YouTube people, you can come on over and talk with us too. We are completely insane and it's a good time over here on Twitch. Or Kick, sometimes we got Kick going too. But yeah, I don't think I've got any Kick people at the moment, but that's fine. But yeah, we have Kick friends as well. All right, 2 perspectives. Origins of the naturalistic decision-making approach. The NDM approach, which focuses on the successes of expert intuition, grew out of early research on master chess players conducted by de Groot and later by Chase and Simon. DeGroot showed that chess masters were generally able to identify the most promising moves rapidly, while mediocre chess players often did not even consider the best moves. For that matter, we should mention our buddy Agni. Evolve Yourself TV is the second link on the first chat message below. He is a former philosopher and now he's a professional chess instructor, and so you can go over his streams asking philosophy, also asking chess questions. He's a buddy. And all the other people below on these links are, worth following, checking out their streams. As you saw, we already have Aristotle. Evolve Yourself is there. The Ask a Philosopher booth is cool. You get to ask him questions. Ivan Neo, he's cool. He's probably streaming right now. Prof or Prof. And Luminance Bloom is a new but very welcome addition to the community. Then we also have Tommy, who does mind and neuroscience. And then Dr. No Way. I forgot I added him. I don't hang out over there, but he is an epistemologist. And then we've got the Continental Hegel crew over at Return to Hegel. If Empty Buddha starts streaming, I gotta add him. And then our sociology and politics friends, Infernal Shane McInnes, who does also history, Kali Oxenfree, who was streaming earlier today, Lumpy Dragon Potatoes in chat now, and Globus the Elder, who does AI news and stuff because that's really relevant nowadays. You know what? Let me give Kali a shout out. Because I think she comes by sometimes, but she doesn't chat because we're scary philosophers, and she's a linguist person. Kali Ox. So yeah, if any of you want to hang out with linguistics people who, there's a lot of overlap between philosophy and linguistics, also, especially on the technical side, like philosophy of language is a big deal. So, but you can go hang out with Kali, so she's fun. There's a cat named Boudica. All right, getting back to the article. Okay, the chess grandmasters mainly differed from weaker players in their unusual ability to appreciate the dynamics of complex positions and quickly judge a line of play as promising or fruitless. Jason Simon described the performance of chess experts as a form of perceptual skill in which complex patterns are recognized. They estimated that chess masters acquire a repertoire of 50,000 to 100,000 immediately recognizable chess patterns, and that this repertoire enables them to identify a good move without having to calculate all possible contingencies. Strong players need a decade of serious play to assemble this large collection of basic patterns, but of course, they achieve impressive levels of skill even earlier. On the basis of this work, Simon defined intuition as the recognition of patterns stored in memory. Yeah, so intuition then is this having a repertoire of a huge set of strategic positions. Now, it's different. It's not just a pattern. You need more than just a pattern. You have to have a strategic valence. You have to know what's good about it. So it's not just recognizing a pattern. You have to recognize the pattern as good or bad. So you have to know that. And you have to be careful about what you're saying here, because recognizing a pattern is one thing. Oh, I've seen this before, but you have to know, oh, I've seen this before and it was really good for, either the person on offense or defense. So careful about just saying pattern. Pattern is not enough. Okay. The early work that led to the approach is now called NDM, was an attempt to describe and analyze the decision-making of commanders of firefighting companies. Fireground commanders are required to make decisions under conditions of uncertainty and time pressure that preclude any orderly effort to generate and evaluate sets of options. Yeah, so there's a big difference between chess and many worldly situations, because chess is fully known. There's no uncertainty in chess. And so when you're making decisions under uncertainty, it's very different, because in chess, everyone can see the entire board. There's no fog of war. You can play chess now where there's fog of war, like where you can't see the other person's pieces unless you are attacking them. But that's a new thing. You can only do that on computers nowadays. But that's a major difference when you don't know what's going on someplace else, and then you have to decide. You're making decisions under uncertainty, and that's different from chess and a lot of sports where you can see everything that's going on by the opponent. Okay, so uncertainty and time pressures that preclude any orderly effort to generate and evaluate sets of options. But normal chess is very black and white. But Klein, Calderwood, and Clinton Sirocco investigated how the commanders could make decisions without comparing options. The initial hypothesis was that commanders would restrict their analysis to only a pair of options, but that hypothesis proved to be incorrect. In fact, the commanders usually generated only a single option, and that was all they needed. They could draw on the repertoire of patterns they had compiled during more than a decade of both real and virtual experience to identify a plausible option, which they considered first. Yeah, so when people are under stress, you come up with one good option. You don't sit there worrying about stuff. You don't have time to. They evaluated this option by mentally simulating it to see if it would work in the situation they were facing, a process de Groot had described as progressive deepening. That's a funny term. Progressive deepening seems like it happens on a lot of different sorts of topics. Anyway. If the course of action they were considering seemed appropriate, they would implement it. If it had shortcomings, they would modify it. If they could not easily modify it, they would turn to the next most plausible option and run through the same procedure until an acceptable course of action was found. This recognition-primed decision, RPD strategy, was effective because it took advantage of the commander's tacit knowledge. The fireground commanders were able to draw on their repertoires to anticipate how flames were likely to spread through a building, to notice signs that house was likely to collapse, to judge when to call for additional support, and to make many other critical decisions. The RPD model is consistent with the work of de Groot and Simon, and has been replicated in multiple domains, including system design, military command and control, and management of offshore oil installations. Now, for any of you wondering, this is one of the reasons this guy Daniel Kahneman right here is so famous, is because his stuff has military and business application. They love this dude because his original research was like defense contracts. He was looking at how to, make decisions under defense, like the defense department wanted to know how to make military commanders make better decisions. But yeah. So it's like you can look at the funding with like some of this stuff. And so this is one of the reasons he got so famous, is because he came up with like really strong research in a very, very important area for a lot of people. So like this stuff here where they're saying business and military, it's like, yeah, this is why he's one of the reasons why people like him. It's fun seeing how much we know about social behavior comes from kind of dark research or examples. Cool cat. What kitty? Do I have a kitty? But yeah, he's a cool cat. Yeah, I mean, of course, the internet was a DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects thing from the U.S. So that was a lot of stuff. But you have to keep also in mind, DARPA funds a lot of pure research in areas they like. This is pure research. It did not get implemented till much later. Like game theory can be used for marketing, politics, international negotiations, exactly. And where did that come from? Like, if you go back, now I'm blanking, Morgenstern and, oh, dear Lord, I'm blanking on the name, very famous mathematician. But, like, you can look at what those guys were talking about, the Morgenstern and, the original book on game theory. And it's like, what were they looking at? They were looking at, just the World War II ended. This was 1948. They were looking at military strategy and how you actually talk about this stuff. And they abstracted it away from like the logic and the mathematics and all that stuff to do it. And if you go back also, we were talking Alan Turing earlier. Alan Turing was a student at Cambridge when Wittgenstein was there. We know that Alan Turing went to Wittgenstein's philosophy group. There was a philosophy group that like Wittgenstein would Price. I don't think it was Price. Okay, now I have to go look it up. Johann von Neumann. It's Johann von fucking Neumann. I'm sorry. Like, this is the theory of games and economic behavior. From like, what is this? 1944 or whatever. The book is partly based on early research by von Neumann. Like, von Neumann is like a god of mathematics. Yeah. So this is the book is from 1940. Oh, it was 44. Yeah. So. Yes, if people want to know about the history of this, what Anne was mentioning, that like where this came from, this is the book that set off game theory, basically. Yeah. You see, and where did it come from? On the theory of board games. Uh-huh. Yeah. It was von Neumann and Morgenstern. And let's see. I wonder where the history is of this. Yeah, and see, Ivan should be happy. So they updated it, and then they used Bayes' theorem to do new updating. So yeah. Chess was originally a form of military strategy, right? Well, chess is very, very old. But yes, it's thought that it was like sort of a military strategy game. But I mean, yeah, that's basically the idea, is that you were directing your, positioning your soldiers on the battlefield. Wittgenstein, when he was writing his Tractatus, his early work, he was in World War One, and he was in a hospital. He got injured at a certain point, and he was watching people do military strategy, on a map, moving the little things around. And so this is where people think he may have gotten his picture theory from, where people were using actual like maps and like little items to represent actual pieces of the military, showing where it went. So it was like using game pieces to actually represent the military, commanders and what they were doing. So this is all wrapped up. And what I was saying about Turing was that Turing is known to have been at a talk from Wittgenstein called Mind in Games. This is like literally like Mind in Games was like one of the talks that Turing attended. So the Turing test 20 years later or 30 years later, for whatever it was like, this is not that far. So these people, when they're talking about games in philosophy and other places, this was all like floating in the air back then. So yeah. Theory of Games and Economic Behavior from I didn't realize it was 44. I thought it was 48. But yeah. Okay, so where are we? So yeah, okay. In each of these domains, the RPD model offers a generally encouraging picture of expert performance. It would be a caricature of the NDM approach, however, to describe it as being solely dedicated to praising expertise. NDM researchers have also tried to document and analyze failures in the performance of experts. In fact, the NDM movement was crystallized by an event that resulted from a catastrophic failure in expert decision-making. In 1988, an international tragedy occurred after the USS Vincennes actually shot down an Iranian Airbus. So, like, this looks like if it's an Airbus, it's a civilian airplane. The USS Vincennes was an Aegis cruiser, one of the most technologically advanced systems in the Navy inventory, but the technology was not sufficient to stave off the disaster. The incident has been the subject of detailed investigation by NDM researchers. As a result of the disastrous error and subsequent political fallout, the U.S. Navy decided to initiate a program of research on decision-making, the Tactical Decision-Making Under Stress (TADMUS) program. Thus, it was that in 1989, a group of 30 researchers who studied decision-making in natural settings met for several days in an effort to find commonalities between decision-making processes of firefighters, nuclear power plant controllers, Navy officers, Army officers, highway engineers, and other populations. See, why is this the case? We need the freaking U.S. military to go kill some innocent people, and then there be like some political fallout, and then we get some like cool research done. Like, that's not how we should be organizing our society, please. But okay, that's the way things happen at the moment. Several researchers from the judgment and decision-making tradition participated in this meeting and in the preparation of a book describing the NDM perspective. Lipschitz identified several decision-making models that were developed to describe the strategies used in field settings, including the recognition-primed decision model, the cognitive continuum model, image theory, the search for dominance structures, and the skills rules knowledge framework and decision ladder. The NDM movement that emerged from this meeting focuses on field studies of subject matter experts who make decisions under complex conditions. These experts are expected to successfully attain vaguely defined goals in the face of uncertainty, time pressure, high stakes, team and organizational constraints, shifting conditions, and action feedback loops that enable people to manage disturbances while trying to diagnose them. A central goal of NDM is to demystify intuition by identifying the cues that experts use to make their judgments, even if those cues involve tacit knowledge and are difficult for the expert to articulate. This is one of those interesting things. The expert might just know, but they won't be able to tell you how they know. This happens a lot. If a lot of times people be like, well, why do you do this? You're just like, trust me, bro. Like, trust me. Don't do it the other way. Like, it's bad. Because you forget the problem. You forget what the problem was. You just know that there is a problem. I remember having a job years ago, and the guy was like, well, this was when I was a lifeguard. The guy was like, we should move, like, there was at a dock, and like, so I was a lifeguard, and we had like rowing and stuff, and they were like, why don't you move all the rowboats from over there to over there? Like, no, that's a bad idea. And like, everyone said it, but the guy was like, let's just do it. Like, we'll save space or something. And then a week later, we had like people there, and it rained, and there was nowhere for people to go when it rained because all the boats were taking up all the space, and everyone got soaked. And we were like, dude, we couldn't tell you why it was a bad idea, but we couldn't remember why it was a bad idea, because when it rains, when it rains, but it's gonna rain eventually, you need the space. Like, you need the space. You don't put the boats there. And the guy didn't listen to us, and eventually, I think he got fired very quickly because like he just didn't listen to us. He didn't know what he was doing, and when we weren't trying to be jerks about it, anything, but he treated us like we were assholes. We're like, we weren't screwing with you. Like, you can see, like, when it rained, it was a problem, but he was a bad boss. Anywho. But like, yeah, you can't, just because you know something doesn't always mean that you remember why it is that way. All right. King of New York, thank you. That's the King of New York right there. That's King of New York, Frank White. Welcome in, Ivan Neo. How you doing? How's the rest of your stream? Luminance, what's going on? Reading rap. Who am I? What is this stream about? Hi, I'm Noger. No Gray. No Grayo. Whatever you want to call me. Just don't be a jerk about it. You could also call me Noah. My name's Noah. I read philosophy. On this, we're actually reading something by Daniel Kahneman and someone else named Klein. This guy here, Klein. Gary Klein. And we discuss philosophy and sometimes other things, like this is psychology. This is talking about decision making. So yeah, and welcome in. How we do. But you can ask me other stuff. And ask me anything. I don't have to answer your dumbasses. Epic rant tonight. What are you ranting about? How you doing, Ivan? Thanks for the raid. Let's give Ivan shout out. Ivan. Okay. Lumens Bloom, this is me. Oh yeah, he does philosophy stuff. Oh man, and my computer's like breaking, which is kind of weird too. But that's not a big deal. He does stuff with philosophy, about philosophy, with philosophy, to do philosophy philosophically in a philosophical manner. Thank you for being so specific about that. It says I'm still going. Oh, okay. It must have been a mini F, yeah. Okay. Glad you got my machine back up. Yeah, dude. It's, weird. It's really weird. Things are, like, not good. But, yeah, we'll see. I mean, it says my CPU is at 25%. The CPU is not the problem. I think my GPU is dying, though. Yeah. Hey, good. Yeah, so thank you for, sticking around during the mini F. Oh, my God. But, I think, what's it called? Twitch is shitting the bed. It says I have 31 viewers here, which is interesting because I had 12, and then Ivan rated with 7, which equals 19. Yeah, a refresh. Oh, yeah. Refresh if you're not back. Yeah, new math. I don't know. But that's okay. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, we're actually talking about Dan Kahneman, who just died a week or two ago. Actually, no. Well, maybe 3 weeks ago now. But I've published on some of his research. And so, one of my friends, my friend Lisa, who was the editor of the book on money, The Philosophy of Money. Even after refresh, let me reload Twitch. Yeah, sometimes Twitch is Twitch. That's all. Yeah. Okay, now we're down to like more reasonable numbers. I was like, where did the 31 people come from? That's crazy. But I mean, maybe I got front paged for a half second. Who knows? Yeah, so Dan Kahneman just died, and so she recommended this paper. She said it was a good paper about like psych and mind stuff. So we're reading this. It's in the American Psychologist. It's not strictly philosophy, but it's nearby. All right, welcome back, Read and Rap. Thanks for fighting through the tech difficulties. Still 30 on your side? It's fine. We don't have to worry about it. Like, I don't care. I used to stream to like 0 people, 1 person, 2 people. I don't have friends that care about like what I do, like this sort of thing. Like, I got friends, but I don't care. None of them care about me streaming on Twitch. So like, I was streaming to 0 people. A lot of people, when they start off, they'd be like, they got their friends they chat with. I did not do that. I streamed to 0 for like a long time. So I am fine with it. Whoever's here is cool. Appreciate you. Yes, it's bouncing around. That's fine. The way the math works here, it's like you said, it's the new math. Thank you, Luminance. But it's taken a while to get like, you find your audience eventually, as long as you're producing decent content, which I try to do. There's some people here. But yeah, like I said, when a lot of people start streaming, they get like, a few people just to like lurk in their streams. I had 0. Like, whatever, it's fine. Okay, so we're talking, and Ivan, you might be interested in some of this article here. This is talking about different reasoning strategies that are used by, organizations like the military, oil rigs, how to make decisions under stress, under lack of information. So yeah, like this clicky here, it's this one. I don't know if I have the file was sent to me by my friend Lisa, who was the editor of that money book we did, but yeah. Lumen says, yeah, sometimes like my girlfriend would show up or like my sister or something, but if I was like holding my IRL friends hostage if they actually showed up, yeah, groovy. Yeah. So, but Lisa said this was good. I'll take Lisa's word for it. I once looked up Lisa's publications. She has like all of us smoked by so far. Lisa is like so well published. She's like smart. Yeah. Reading up was like, me, so I was willing to lose his examination of metaphysics. Friends, shut the fuck up, nerd. Yeah. I mean, we're like turbo nerds. If you're here, you're a turbo nerd, okay? That's just how it is. Turbinoclard, as the Daniel Matt says. Turbo nerd. Like, you really have to be. And I like when someone came in here a little while ago, a few weeks ago, someone's like, oh man, aren't you fun at parties? I'm like, you're the one on Twitch at my stream. If you're at my stream on Twitch, you're the worst nerd. Like, you're the nerd. I'm also the nerd, but like, that's you. You're here. So it's like, no. Like, if you're like coming in here to yell at me, you've got the bigger problem. Go spend, like, you're wasting your time if you think I'm a bad stream. So it's like, just leave. No problem. Okay. Where were we? Okay, yeah, so this NDM is natural decision making. So this is the natural decision making model. A central goal of natural decision making model, for those who are new, is to demystify intuition by identifying the cues that experts use to make their judgments, even if those cues involve tacit knowledge and are difficult for the expert to articulate. In this way, the natural decision model researchers try to learn from expert professionals. Many NDM researchers use cognitive task analysis methods to investigate the cues and strategies that skilled decision makers apply. CTA methods are semi-structured, so this is new cognitive task analysis. So cognitive task analysis methods are semi-structured interview techniques that elicit the cues and contextual considerations influencing judgments and decisions. Researchers cannot expect decision makers to accurately explain why they made decisions. CTA methods provide a basis for making inferences about the judgment and decision process. For example, Crandall and Gretchen Reiter studied nurses in a neonatal intensive care unit. And you gotta go. Have a great rest of the stream. Bye, and thanks for being here. Love you. Okay, yeah, so in NICU, so neonatal intensive care unit, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like, say there's a complication or the birth had to be early, and so the baby, now that it's outside the mother, it's like it's very, very dangerous that it might die, very close to death, and so it's this is one of the most intense places in a hospital because you're trying to save a very, very fragile life. Yeah. Okay. Who could detect infants developing life-threatening infections even before blood tests became back positive. Yeah. So these are people who know the signs even before it's showing up on our machines. Yeah. When asked, the nurses were at first At first, unable to describe how they made their judgments, the researchers used CTA methods to probe specific incidents and identified a range of cues and patterns, some of which had not yet appeared in the nursing or medical literature. A few of these cues were opposite to the indicators of infection in adults. Crandall and Gamblian extended the NICU work. They confirmed the findings with nurses from a different hospital and then created an instructional program to help new NICU nurses learn how to identify the early signs of sepsis in neonates. The program has been widely disseminated throughout the nursing community. Yeah, this is the sort of cool stuff that people do, and hopefully they'll be able to use like AI now to also increase this sort of thing and then distribute more information. What's up, Frank? Explaining decision requires deeper abstraction than making the decision, so when your decisions are at your maximum abstraction level, of course you can't explain them. Yeah, I was saying this earlier, that I was working years ago at this. I was at a dock at a waterfront. I was a lifeguard, and a new boss was saying, yeah, we should move stuff, and all of us were telling him, no, don't do that, but we couldn't remember why. We had forgotten what it was. It wasn't even that we couldn't it wasn't anything special. It was just that when it rained, you needed the space under a cover, under the covering to hide under. But like the guy wanted us to move the boat, so we couldn't remember what it was. Like, and the guy wouldn't listen to us, and then it rained and we were all getting wet, and it was like stupid. But like, there's a lot of reasons why we might not be able to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it. That doesn't make us wrong. It just means the actual reason doesn't matter. It's just you have to know the right way. Yeah. Ivan just brought up Chesterton's fence in his stream. Yeah. I forgot why. Just trust me. Well, it's persistent. Like, if everyone is saying it, like, just, and we're not being jerks about it, and we were assholes. Like, we were real assholes back in the day, all of us. But like, we weren't being assholes at that moment. We weren't being assholes right then. Like, the guy wouldn't listen to us, and we were like, come on, man, like, we're not trying to fuck with you. And he just wanted to, put his foot down and be like, I'm the boss. We're going to do this. We're going to make things better. And then it wasn't. And it was just, it revealed the stupidity of what he was doing. And like I said, I think we got him fired, basically, because he was so incompetent that, like, we were, well, the year before, the boss got arrested 2 days, because this was a summer camp. The boss got arrested 2 or 3 days into, like, the week before summer camp for being a pedophile. So that left my I was 17. That left my 21-year-old buddy, who liked to party, in charge of the waterfront. That was a very messy summer. Then the next year, they had to get someone else, because they weren't going to put my buddy Chris back in charge if they didn't have to. They got somebody else who was incompetent, and they ended up having to put Chris back in charge of the waterfront. It was another fun summer. Yeah. So, I have forgotten more dangerous stories than I remember at this point. It's like a form of bilinguality. I forget how you say it rationally. I say a lot of dumb stuff on stream. Like, the rationality requirement is very high. The idea that, like, I have to explain things in a rational way, that's extremely high. Rationality is, like, higher functioning. Yeah. Was the summer camp in the city? No, it was upstate New York. So. Yeah, Boy Scout camp. And we got that, the pedophile, like a state trooper showed up and arrested the guy 3 days in. So we hired a fucking pedophile with a warrant out for his arrest, and 3 days in he gets arrested. Yeah. Well, it's not out west. It's just north. It's just northern New York State, not western. But yeah. Yeah. Okay. Origins of the heuristic and biases approach. Be prepared. Dude, someone once asked me, like, I needed a pen for something. They're like, you're a Boy Scout. Aren't you prepared? I'm like, I am prepared to take your pen away from you. And they were like, oh. It's like, yeah. You did Boy Scouts only for 1 year, but it was through the Mormon church, so quite weird. Yeah, that's one of the problems with the Boy Scouts. It's heavily aligned in some parts of the country with religion, and that gets it very strange. They used to get most of their funding from the Southern Baptists, and so there was a lot of anti-gay stuff back in the day, because the Southern Baptists were anti-gay at the time. I don't know if they still are. And so that meant that eventually corporate sponsors started to pull their money when it became politically inconvenient. The Boy Scouts eventually backed away because they still wanted the money from the Christian churches, but it was bad for a long time. And I mean, being in New York, like, we were not anti-gay, but like, we just, we were paying lip service to like the national organization, but it was just like stupid. So that we had like even though we weren't allowed to officially have gay leaders or anybody gay, there were like known gay people, and it was just like, don't ask, don't tell, or like, or it was just don't tell, don't make a thing of it, because it's like, we knew they were gay, it was fine. It's like, who cares? Like, they weren't sleeping with like anyone that didn't want to sleep with them. So, yeah, there's weird stories, very, very weird stories, which I've mostly forgotten at this point. I had a buddy, my buddy Chrissy. They used to call her, like, for people who are old enough, if you guys remember the band camp girl, they called her the Boy Scout camp girl, because it was just always this one time at Boy Scout camp, this happened, and they were always insane. They were. Lumen said Mormon Church was the funniest way of dealing with that. Political pressures mount, and suddenly God sends a special message at the annual conference that black people can be included in the priesthood now. Yeah, like, who knows how this works? Ivan says, I joined an Explore Points, a science club affiliate with the Scouts, but I refused to sign their belief in God thing. Yep, exactly. You have to sort of, at least, well, I didn't have to sign anything. Like, yeah, like, around me, we don't, like, it wouldn't matter. You do have to say, like, morally straight and, like, under God or whatever, but no one cared. Yeah. God gives a new patch every year. Megalomorph, what's up? Once I saw a skit SNL that said, this country has been infested with a cult. I know because I used to be one of them. They're so twisted that they hold you underwater until you agreed with them. They're called the Southern Baptists. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of religion and stuff in the United States, and some of it's better than others. Some of it's batshit insane. So, but yeah, I don't want to shit on all the, like, religious people. Some of them are fine. Some of them are great. There's many crazy ones, but there are many crazy people in general. That's not only a religious problem. I'm not religious at all. Persistent. Yeah. 10 old guys go into a room and get the message. Yeah. So, judge him. Dun dun dun. Yeah, definitely do it. Did you catch that map posted in Shane's Discord? You were shocked at how much more religious USA is? Yeah. Vipers, I did see that. I was more shocked at how unreligious the rest of the world was in comparison, or at least Europe was. Not the rest of the world, just Europe. I was like, I know that's the US. Like, I'm not that surprised. I was just surprised how low the, like, firm belief in God was for Europeans. Yeah. You're not trying to shut Mormons, just things look funny. No, exactly. Don't shut on Mormons just because they're Mormons. If they say or do something silly, then fine, fair game. But yeah, your family's Mormon, some place of love, whatever, dude. Like, I don't, like I said, if someone does something stupid, call them out. If they're not doing anything stupid or it's just like silly, that's fine. No problem. Okay, try to get through a little bit more of this. Yeah, see, this is the problem with double columned papers. They are longer than they realize. So I'm only on page 4. I have like 13 here. Origins of the heuristic and biases approach. In sharp contrast to the NDM, that's a natural decision model, HB, that's a heuristic bias approach, favors a skeptical attitude towards expertise and expert judgment. The origins of this attitude can be traced to a famous monograph published by Paul Meehl in 1954. But he tasked me, yeah. Persistent, one would assume metaphysics and religion shouldn't go hand in hand, but I know plenty have claimed it. Well, the religions need a particular metaphysics to work with their religion. So clearly, religion likes metaphysics. Metaphysics on its own, I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's like you have to go see what works. It's like you have to reason about it or like experience it in the world or something. Metaphysics on its own doesn't tell you a whole lot, but from the religious side, if you were setting up a structure like, God and world, you've already got some sort of, dualistic sort of, like, there's more than one thing at least in the universe. So that's going to get you it's going to get you at least a minimal metaphysics if you have any sort of like higher power, because then there's going to be a higher power and then like our reality, and so you've got multiple substances at this point. All metaphysics is ontotheology, some old Nazi guy. Yeah, fair. Now that you're getting more popular, you're going to have to either read short papers, ignore chat, or start the papers earlier. And guess what I did today, Vipers? I started the papers earlier. I did. But yeah, if I want to not stream for more than 2.5 hours, because I do start losing my mind, it's like, yeah. And I've been streaming for only an hour and a half at this point, so it's not that bad. When you were in Syracuse, the philosophy department was big for metaphysics, mostly in the service of Plantinga-style philosophy of religion and theology. Yeah, and again, you don't have to like that, but it is a particular kind of metaphysics, and you can learn plenty of metaphysics because you're going to learn their like that style response to other stuff. You don't have to like it. You could look like something else, but as long as Syracuse has always been known for metaphysics, or it has for a long time. So what's up, Brian? Also, hi. But so Plantinga is, for those who don't know, he's a philosopher, a religious philosopher, but he's like a contemporary metaphysician who would, try to argue metaphysics, and then also that supported his religious sort of view. So he was trying to do metaphysics more generally, but then also the religious metaphysics. So it was, take it or leave it. You might not like him. Did you see a time he was on local news? I don't know about that. Megalomorph says, the thing that bugs me about the metaphysics-religion connection is when people say you cannot be moral without God. I have to wonder if their religion is the only thing holding them back from murdering everyone. Yeah, that's always, Megalomorph, that's always like one of those weird things. It's like, so if you didn't think you were going to go to hell, you'd kill everybody? Like, is that like the sort of person you are? You have to be threatened in order to not do really heinous things? And it's like a weird question. It's like they should know better, but they don't. Yeah, life has no meaning. Oh no. Yeah, Plantinga, no, they started out as Calvinist. Calvin, yeah. High school, Grand Rapids for science competitions. Okay, little history of Unreal Brian. Alright, so yeah, we're talking about the heuristic and bias approach. Meal reviewed approximately 20 studies that compared the accuracy of forecasts made by human judges, mostly clinical psychologists, and those predicted by simple statistical models. The criteria that in the studies that Meal discussed were diverse, with the outcome measures ranging from academic success to patient recidivism and propensity for violence. All right, I don't know what that video is. Okay, nothing to do with philosophy. We'll deal with that later then. Life doesn't have to have meaning for us to find meaning in it. Yeah, if you need it given from the outside, that doesn't mean it isn't. You can't generate your own meaning from something else. There's multiple ways to do stuff. Multiple ways to skin a cat. And people always yell at me for using that term. Oh, dagnabbit. Did I not update my... Dagnabbit. Forgot to do that. I forgot to hit the save button. Shoot. Okay. Although the algorithms were based on a subset of the information available to the clinicians, statistical predictions were more accurate than human predictions in almost every case. Meal believed that the inferiority of clinical judgments was due in part to systematic errors, and as the consistent neglect of those of the base rates of outcomes in discussion of individual cases. Okay, yeah. So basically, the systematic errors of the clinical judgments. In a well-known article, he later explained his reluctance to attend clinical conferences by citing his annoyance with the clinicians' uncritical reliance on their intuition and their failure to apply elementary statistical reasoning. Yeah, so this is the other side. This is when people are just doing things wrong and not following the statistics. So before we were looking at all the people who got things right and how do you figure out what they got right, this is now everybody's doing everything wrong, and we have to figure out how they're doing, how to tell them they're wrong and follow the statistical evidence. Okay, inconsistency is a major weakness of informal judgment. When presented with the same case information on separate occasions, human judges often reach different conclusions. Goldberg reported a bootstrapping effect, which provides the most dramatic illustration of the effect of inconsistency on the validity of judgments. Goldberg required a group of 29 clinicians to make diagnostic judgments, psychotic versus neurotic, in a set of cases based on personality test profiles of 861 patients who had been independently assigned to one of these categories. He constructed an individual model of the predictions of each judge using multiple regression to estimate the weight that the judge assigned to each of the 11 scales in the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Judges were then required to make predictions for a new set of cases. Goldberg also used the individual statistical model of each judge to generate a prediction for these new cases. So this is fascinating stuff. So the researcher modeled all the clinicians to see what they did and also all the people, and then they predicted how they should be doing it. Okay. The bootstrap models were almost always more accurate than the judges they modeled. The only plausible explanation of this remarkable result is that human judgments are noisy to an extent that substantially impairs their validity. In an extensive meta-analysis of judgment studies using the lens model, Correllea and Hogarth reported strong support for the generality of the bootstrap effect for the crucial importance of lack of consistency in explaining this effect. So that's fascinating. Like, the more people did it, the more they would assume they got stuff right, and then would be farther and farther away from the truth compared to when they had just started out with the original evidence. Speaking of making predictions about judges, I've heard one of the best indicators of how they will rule is how long it's been they last ate. I've heard that, and then someone in chat was telling me that has been debunked. So you take it or leave it. But chat was arguing over this one time, so I don't know. Okay, so, look at this. Now they're referencing himself. Kahneman read Meal's book in 1955 while serving in the psychological research unit of the IDF. So, like I said, who's funding this research? This was IDF. Kahneman was originally IDF funded. So it's debunked. Okay, thank you, Vipers. And the book helped him make sense of his own encounters with the difficulties of clinical judgment. One of Kahneman's duties was to assess candidates for officer training using field tests and other observations, as well as a personal interview. Kahneman described the powerful sense of getting to know each candidate and the accompanying conviction that he could foretell how well the candidate would do in further training and eventually in combat. The subjective conviction of understanding each case in isolation was not diminished by the statistical feedback from officer training school, which indicated that the validity of the assessments was negligible. Kahneman coined the term illusion of validity for the unjustified sense of confidence that often comes with clinical judgment. His early experience with the fallibility of intuitive impressions could hardly be more different from Klein's formative encounter with the successful decision-making of fireground commanders. The first study in HB, that's heuristic and bias tradition, was conducted in 1969 by Tversky and Kahneman. This is what they eventually got the Nobel Prize for. It described performance in a task that researchers often perform without recourse to computation, choosing the number of cases for a psychological experiment. The participants in the study were sophisticated methodologists and statisticians, including two authors of statistics textbooks. They answered realistic questions about the sample size they considered appropriate in different situations. Where am I? Just lost my spot. The conclusion of the study was that sophisticated scientists reached incorrect conclusions and made inferior choices when they followed their intuitions, failing to apply rules with which they were certainly familiar. And this is the conjunction fallacy. People do not follow rules of probability. So the statisticians should be following the rules of probability, and they don't do it. Go figure. The article offered a strongly worded recommendation that researchers faced with the task of choosing a sample size should forsake intuition in favor of computation. This initial study of professionals reinforced Tversky and Kahneman in their belief, originally based on introspection, that faulty statistical intuitions survive both formal training and actual experience. Many studies in the intervening decades have confirmed the persistence of a diverse set of intuitive errors in the judgments of some professionals. So depending on what you're looking at, either people are fucking up royally, like these statisticians, or doing a really good job, like the firefighters that are directing firefights. Okay. Sorry if you heard a bang. Okay. Contrast between the naturalistic decision making and heuristic and bias approaches. Megalomorph said we had to develop probability because we were just bad about thinking probabilistically. I don't think people like to admit their fallibility. That's true, but these were statisticians that they were using. Like, this is literally, they were using statisticians. Like, statisticians. Literally, the people who should know better. So, you'd think so, but even the people who should know better still fuck it up. So that's why we use computers now. All right, the intellectual traditions we have traced to de Groot's studies of chess masters and DM and Meal's research on clinicians, HB, are alive and well today. They are reflected in the approaches of our respective intellectual communities. In this section, we consider three important contrasts between the two approaches: the stance taken by the natural decision model and the heuristic and biases researchers toward expert judgment, and use of field versus laboratory settings for decision-making research, and the application of different standards of performance, which leads to different conclusions about expertise. Megalomorph says yes, they should know better, but they think they have a better honed intuition, but it isn't good enough. Of course. And this is one of the problems in philosophy, too. Philosophers are known to have these biases. Philosophers think, oh, I don't make logical fallacies. Oh, I know how to reason. I don't do this stuff. And philosophers are just as human as everyone else and make the same fuck-ups. Frank says, but should they know better? I mean, more better than normal people. If it's not categorized as a statistical question for them, they will never engage their statistical answering. I'm going to have to default to the way they said it here in the article that made it look like they were choosing things for sample sizes for statistical analysis. So it seems like they should have been at least in the area of statistical stuff. So like, where did it say that? Yeah, so right here. So like you might be right, but it seems like choosing the number of cases for a psychological experiment. This seems like the sort of thing that they should have known better. Yeah. Luminous says exactly. I think that's the most important fallacy, but has no name as far as you know. I call it the narrativistic fallacy. Yeah, I mean, it's just some sort of overconfidence thing. I don't know. But yeah, maybe. I don't know if it has a proper name. Where people, because of their experience, they get overconfident. Yeah. It's like the opposite of the less you know, the less you realize it. Now I'm blanking on names. I'm starting to lose my mind because did we hit 2 hours yet? Yeah, 1 hour, 45 minutes. Reasoning based on narratives about what kind of person you are. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so it's more personalized is what you're saying, Luminance. Interesting. So like I think I know better because of my personal history, and then I go on to make, terrible mistakes. Dunning-Kruger. Thank you, Megalomorph. Yeah, the less you know, the less you realize it. That's Dunning-Kruger. But then Luminance is doing the reverse one, where you think you know more, and so you end up being overconfident and making mistakes too. I'm a philosopher, so I must not make mistakes. Yeah. Well, there's so many I'm so smart philosophers, like I'm the smartest person out there. I reason so good because I do logic and things. And they're jackasses mostly. So they make mistakes. Is just they don't make the mistakes they know about. They just make other mistakes because there's a million kinds of ways to fuck up. Every doctor ever. Yeah. I mean, then you start getting into problems in the medical field of overconfidence, and that's why we're trying to introduce AI into things to cut down on like doctors, and stuff like that. Looks like it's literally called the overconfidence effect. Well, there we go. Okay. I'm a philosopher. I don't make mistakes except for my choice of degree. Guilty as charged. Persistent. I just think I'm a fool, and it's worked well for you so far. Has it? Like, is that really what's worked well for you? Is I'm a fool? I mean, that's interesting if it did. So, yeah. The overconfidence effect. Yeah, so, it's a descriptive name, but it's not particularly, helpful. Philosopher, define mistake. Yeah, I was in the Hegel, was it number one Hegel fan? What's it called? Our buddy, the Hegel person. Now I'm losing everything. And they had some memes on their Discord, and it was like they had the continental Chad and the like sad, pathetic analytic philosopher. It's like, I can't be making a mistake. I know all the mistakes. I defined them. It's like, yes, good job. You defined yourself. What the mistakes are. You don't realize that you're defining yourself out of the problem. That doesn't solve your problem. If you're defining mistakes, like only the mistakes you define are mistakes. No, that's only the ones you've defined. That doesn't actually get you at the way the world is, where you can fuck up in any number more ways. Like, there's a lot of ways to do it. Yeah, return to Hegel. Thank you. But this was a bad caricature, but this is the overconfidence problem, where if you think because you're a philosopher and you know better, no, there's always more ways to fuck up. There's always more ways to fuck up. You don't make mistakes, yes. Persistence says, as opposed to assuming I know everything, yeah, it's worked okay. Yeah. I mean, a healthy amount of intellectual humility goes a long way. Don't assume that, like, just because you don't know somebody, they don't know what they're talking about. Happens all the time. You're like, oh, those sorts of people, they don't understand stuff. No, they may just understand different things than you do. And so since you can't recognize what they know because it's like, orthogonal to what you know, it's separate, sort of like domains of knowledge, then there's a problem. You can't recognize their smarts because their smarts are in areas you don't have, and maybe vice versa. And so you've got a communication problem, not necessarily an intelligence problem. And so that's why, this happens all the time. And you see this, I think, very, like, movies like Legally Blonde. Everyone treats Elle like she's a ditz. Elle is kind of like flaky at times, but she has deep knowledge about other things. My Cousin Vinny, same sort of thing. You assume someone who isn't like you, doesn't know things. And they may have deep knowledge in areas, but you don't know that. So in like Legally Blonde, Elle has like deep knowledge of like how chemicals affect hair and the chemistry there. And so she was able to catch someone in a lie by knowing how chemicals affect hair. And so it's like, but she has to know like advanced chemistry to know this stuff. Megalomorph says being aware of every mistake doesn't mean you are going to be self-reflective enough and vigilant enough to always spot them. Yeah, exactly. That's always the case too. Yeah. 100%. Lumen says, I remember listening to an NPR report on a study confirming various sexist bias in a particular lab, and they interviewed one of the male scientists. He said, in response to the evidence, well, this can't be right because we're scientists, we only go off the evidence. Yeah, that's, again, you are looking only at the stuff you understand, and so you understand it in the way you want to, or the way that you understand it. But if you look at other stuff, you don't bring in the right sort of understanding of other things that are happening. Literally denying direct evidence in the process. Yeah. It's like, well, that I don't count that evidence because it doesn't fit into that worldview. It's like, well, I don't process it in the same way. You don't realize you're being creepy. Persistence says, I would agree with that. Can't judge a square on its ability to be a triangle. Yeah. And so you get this in the, you see the gender problem. And like, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the United States, like, people treat women. I remember I was working, this is in a lab. One guy said another woman, one of the women was like flaky or ditzy or something. And I was like, no, she's not. She was very smart, but like they were completely different people. And so he couldn't interpret what she was doing, but she was one of the smartest people there. And I was like, no, she's perfectly fine. And he didn't understand. And I was like trying to explain like why she was doing things. And once I explained it to him, he was like, oh, okay, that wasn't dumb after a while. But I was like, he just couldn't get it. Wouldn't go through his head. Why would you want to be a triangle? As the poet says, it's hip to be square. Yes. Viper says, I run into that problem all the time when trying to talk about programming stuff. I literally cripple my own ability to explain because every other word I'm asking myself, do I need to explain its concept? Do I need to explain the explanation? I just don't know where to even start. Yeah, there's a thing in like math and science, the background data, like the sort of like the standard for what people know changes over time. And so when you're trying to like write a proof, you don't need to go through all the data that used to happen, but like that changes over time because people just sort of accept new theorems and whatnot. And so same with computer science, how much does the other person know? And one of the things I've heard is you always use car examples. Most people nowadays have used cars. So if you can make a car example, then you can explain the computer stuff. But like, that's the only heuristic I have. But like, it's hard. Yeah. Lumen says the difference between how students treat male professors and female professors is insane. Yeah. and that you can actually see the statistics on in like the end of year reports, which in the United States I think we're legally required to do. So like you'll see just like wildly, and I mean wildly divergent reports for, you know, professors who basically are otherwise the same, but like if they're one's a male and one's female, like the female gets just crapped on in comparison. And it's like, yeah. Or unless they're good looking, then they get like great reports, but like it's, you know, has nothing to do with their quality as a teacher. Hey Toots, can I get an extension? Yeah. So is not good. And I mean, how can we expect like teenagers? We can expect a lot of teenagers, but I mean, people are idiots. It takes a while for them not to be idiots. So it's hard. And I remember being an idiot when I was younger. I was an idiot. Like I said, I was an much bigger asshole when I was younger. I've worked very hard not to be as big as an asshole as I might have been. And, yeah, so. Okay, where were we? Stance regarding expertise and decision algorithms. There is no logical inconsistency between the observations that inspired NDM and HB approaches to professional judgment. The intuitive judgments of some professionals are impressively skilled, while the judgments of other professionals are remarkably flawed. Although not contradictory, these core observations suggest conflicting generalizations about the utility of expert judgment. Members of the HB community are, of course, aware of the existence of skill and expertise, but they tend to focus on flaws in human cognitive performance. Members of the NDM community know that professionals often err, but tend to stress the marvels of successful expert performance. You seem like one of the least assholish people I know. I've worked very hard to be that way. This was not my natural state. So are the rest of us more assholeish? Yes, I think that's implied. When I was a kid, I was, you know, like kid, like I'm probably 12 or younger. There were like these old, my dad's aunts. So like not my dad, but like the generation above. So this is like my grandparents' generation. There were aunts. There's like a group of 3 ladies, and they said, they're pointing at me. They said to my dad, he's a real Greenstein. And my last name's Greenstein. He's a real Greenstein. And you have to understand something. My dad is not. I am. My dad was not. I am. So my dad's not a real Greenstein. I am. And they said, do you know why? I said, yeah, I'm an asshole. They were like, and they didn't say anything, but like, that was acceptable as an answer. Yeah. No, really. Like exactly. No true Greenstein. My dad did not cut. My dad make the cut. He was too nice of a man, basically. I, on the other hand, look at me. I don't give a fuck about what anyone says. Like I sit around shooting down professional philosophy on Twitch. I don't give a fuck like about a lot of things. But like I was designated like an asshole from when I was a kid. So yeah. Everyone in chat. Okay. Yeah, Luminous had to clarify that one. Okay. But yeah, like I was designated an asshole as a kid. It's like I know. Okay, the basic stance of HB researchers as they consider experts is one of skepticism. They are trained to look for opportunities to compare expert performance with performance by formal models or rules and to expect that experts will do poorly in such comparisons. They're predisposed to recommend the replacement of informal judgment by algorithms whenever possible. You just outed yourself an asshole? Well, none of us know. We missed that part, Vipers. Researchers in the NDM tradition are more likely to adopt an admiring stance towards experts. They are trained to explore the thinking of experts, hoping to identify critical features of the situation that are obvious to experts but invisible to novices and journeymen, and then to search for ways to pass on the expert's secrets to another in the field. NDM researchers are disposed to have little faith in formal approaches because they are generally skeptical about attempts to impose universal structures and rules on judgments and choices that will be made in complex contexts. We found that the sharpest differences between the two of us were emotional rather than intellectual. So this is interesting. This is how these two are rationalizing their completely different views of the world. They're calling them emotional, which I find interesting because emotional is a rather gendered term too. So these two guys are calling themselves emotional for being wrong when they disagree with each other, which I find just, interesting. We'll go with that. Although DK is thrilled by the remarkable intuitive skills of experts that GK and others have described, I forget what those acronyms are. He also, Daniel Kahneman is thrilled by the remarkable intuitive skills of experts that Gary Klein and others have described. He also takes considerable pleasure in demonstrations of human folly and in the comeuppance of overconfident pseudo-experts. I can see some people in our community, going this way. I'm not going to say who right now. For his part, Gary Klein recognizes Gary Klein recognizes that formal procedures and algorithms sometimes outdo human judgment, but he enjoys hearing about cases in which bureaucratization of decision making fails. Further, the non-overlapping sets of colleagues with whom we interact generally share our attitudes and reinforce our differences. Nevertheless, as this article shows, we agree on most of the issues that matter. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, if you're hanging out with Daniel Kahneman, you are on a Nobel Prize winning side. Field versus laboratory. There is an obvious difference in the primary form of research conducted by the respective research communities. The members of the heuristic biases community are mostly based in academic departments and then tend to favor well-controlled experiments in the laboratory. Again, who do you think, some of us are going to be much more in favor of well-controlled laboratory experiments. The members of the NDM community are typically practitioners who operate in real-world organizations. They have a natural sympathy for the ecological approach first popularized in the late 1970s, which questions the relevance of laboratory experiments to real-world situations. NDM researchers use methods such as cognitive task analysis and field observation to investigate judgments and decisions making under complex conditions that would be difficult to recreate in the laboratory. Yeah, so again, if you're doing stuff in historically unusual situations, well, these are historically unusual, and you're seeing how the people actually acted that was good, versus the ones where you're in controlled situations that are replicable, but that's very different from historically contingent situations. So if you're looking at two very different sort of experiments here, or research topics, I guess you would say, not even experiments, if people are looking at historical instances. Okay. There is no logically necessary connection between these methodological choices and the nature of the hypotheses and models being tested. As the examples of the preceding section illustrate, the view that heuristics and biases are only studied and found in the laboratory is a caricature. Similarly, the RPD model could have emerged from the laboratory and it has been tested there. Yeah, I mean, people, of course, you can replicate some of the situations in the real world in a lab. It takes more effort to make a more complex test. In addition, a number of NDM researchers have reported studies of the performance of proficient decision makers in realistically simulated environments. Yeah, so Megalomorph says labs will be artificial conditions, but is also much better controlled. You can be more sure of your results, but the results will be less relevant. This is the trade-off. Exactly. It's always a trade-off. Yep. You probably typed it before I said it. So it's always a trade-off. So this is why these two people are, kind of in agreement, because they're just on different sides of a trade-off and they both agree it's a trade-off. And so this is the kumbaya moment. Okay, the definition of expertise. Natural decision makers, models, researchers cannot use the same kind of optimality criteria as the HB heuristic biases community to define expertise. In rare cases, for example, ratings of chess players based on their record of wins and losses against other rated players, the performance level of experts is determined using standardized measures. Yeah, and you can even get different measures. Like, just because we give them a rank doesn't mean there aren't other ways to rank them. So, what's it called? I forget what the ranking in chess is called, but there is an algorithm to do that. There are other algorithms out there. I didn't program it. I actually adapted one for my Minesweeper website, so we could have a Minesweeper rank. You could literally have the Minesweeper rank like you have your chess rank. ELO. Yeah. Thank you, Luminance. So you get an ELO, and I can't use ELO because it's owned by a company, but there's another one that's basically equivalent or slightly mathematically better that's open source, or not used. So the ELO is not great, but the chess websites, they use the other one because, again, you'd have to pay like whatever the chess organization to use the full ELO. But there's other algorithms out there, and they're not the same. So yeah. I learned from Prof they actually designed the Minesweeper Pro website thing, which I didn't realize. Very impressive and cool. Yeah, I mean, yay for having time during the pandemic. I'd love to get back to that. I just have had zero extra time and like brain space to do that. I really would like to get back to doing some programming projects, but I've been writing philosophy for the last since last year, and I haven't done jack shit for 2 weeks, 3 weeks since I got my last paper out, and I'm finally getting some more like energy back. But I was just dead due to overwork on philosophy, which I've not actually done since I was in school. Like, I had to send a paper out on a deadline. I was up till 2 a.m. the night before to get it done. Yeah, still recovering. Because, you don't feel it. It's just one of these things about being sick. You think you're okay until you look back and be like, I was not okay. It's the way the brain works. It doesn't remember what the nominal state is. It feels all right because I assume, like, evolutionarily speaking, it wants you to just keep going. But, like, frankly, we need more rest than we realize. We always do. So I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. I think I'm, like, basically recovered. But, yeah. But I'm actually doing better. I think I mentioned this, too. I feel much better now than I used to. I used to crash way harder. I couldn't do Minesweeper swine peeper because pigs are filthy animals. Yes, exactly. No swine meeper. I thought you were doing Minesweeper or Schminesweeper, but no, you did the swine meeper. That got me. It's also called what's a battleship? I think in like Russia or something. So there is a battleship style or warship name too. Whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah, so only in times when you have full information and a ranking system can you actually analyze like performance level of experts using standardized measures. But that's highly artificial. And you got to wonder, like, of course, if you are a top level chess master, you're going to be a smart person. But does that chess genius translate so far to other things? Maybe not. Like, a lot of times these people know this just very, very well, and they've spent all their time doing that, meaning they don't know a whole lot of other stuff. Not saying that all of them are like this. I'm sure they're all very smart people. I mean, there's people streaming on Twitch. I know there's like top chess streamers. I used to watch some of them. But yeah, they can do multiple things. But again, if you're spending all your time chess, you're just losing out on the opportunity to learn other stuff. The Battleshop board game, yeah. That too. Okay. However, in most of the situations studied by natural decision model researchers, makers, the criteria for judging expertise are based on a history of successful outcomes rather than on the quantitative performance measures. Yeah. Sometimes you're Gary Kasparov, sometimes you're Bobby Fischer. Yeah. Seriously. And so, yeah, because Kasparov, I believe, has been on the right side of history in other things besides chess, and Bobby Fischer has not been. Okay, the most common method for defining expertise in NDM research is to rely on peer judgments. The conditions for defining expertise are the existence of a consensus and evidence that the consensus reflects aspects of successful performance that are objective even if they are not quantified explicitly. Yeah, so we're defining these things as successful based on the consensus of experts. All the other experts say that was the right thing to do in that situation. They're not looking at the numbers. If performance of different professionals can be compared, the best practitioners define the standards. As Shanto suggested, quote, experts are operationally defined as those who have been recognized within their profession as having the necessary skills and abilities to perform at the highest level. So this is like school. Like, you go and you get like a degree, and then the other experts in the field, you say, well, either you passed your dissertation or you didn't. They say, okay, now you're an expert. Congratulations, doctor. But like, this is not a quantitative measure for like getting a PhD in like philosophy or something. The other experts welcome you to the club. They don't you don't just pass a test. Okay, for example, captains of firefighting companies are evaluated not only by their ability to extinguish fires, but also other criteria such as the amount of damage created before the fire is controlled. When colleagues say if person X had been there instead of person Y, the fire would not have spread as far, then person X counts as an expert within that organization. The use of peer judgments can distinguish highly competent decision makers from mediocre ones who may have the same amount of experience and from novices who have little experience. This level of differentiation is sufficient for most NDM studies. In several of the studies that Meal reviewed, the quality of expert performance was evaluated by comparing the accuracy of decisions made by experts with the accuracy of optimal linear combinations. If the predictions generated by a linear combination of a few variables are more accurate in a new sample than those of a professional who has access to the same information, the performance of the professional is certainly suboptimal. Philosophy, welcome to the club. We will destroy you next. Yeah, I mean, that's other things. But from what I've heard, everyone's very happy about minting a new PhD. It's like the professors, they're very happy for their student. The student now has like their degree, which they've been working for. You give them, a few hours, then you can crush their soul. Like, you're never going to get a job. Okay. Note that the optimality criterion is significantly more demanding than the criterion by which expertise is evaluated in NDM research. NDM researchers compare the performance of professionals with that of the most successful experts in the field, where HB researchers prefer to compare the judgments of professionals with the outcome of a model that makes the best possible use of available information. It is entirely possible for the predictions of experienced clinicians to be superior of those to novices, but inferior to a linear model or an intelligent system. Viper says, so we should rename AI artificial intuition, a statistical analysis of what the right answer might be, but with no cognitive insight into why. I don't know if that's a good idea, actually, because people think that humans have intuition. Like, it gets used in different ways, like there's female intuition, and there's intuition about what's right and wrong. That might even be, it may not be worse, but I don't know if it's any better than saying intelligence, because people already have a lot of things wrapped up with the concept of intuition. So, maybe. But, I don't think it's obvious that that's a good way to go. Yeah. It would be better, I think, to stick with machine learning, because that, I think, gets farther away and is still more accurate. Yeah. Ivan says, I think it's a good idea in some context. Yeah. So maybe in some context. P, because my intuition is that P. Yeah. I mean, that's a very philosophy thing to say. You're defining intuition like X because I intuit that X. But yeah. Yeah, maybe some context, but again, you'd have to argue for those contexts. I think we should use machine learning more generally, but it does not sound anywhere near as sexy as artificial intelligence. Sources of intuition. The judgments and decisions that we are most likely to call intuitive come to mind on their own without explicit awareness of the evoking cues and, of course, without an explicit evaluation of the validity of these cues. The firefighter feels that the house is very dangerous, the nurse feels that an infant is ill, and the chess master immediately sees a promising move. Intuitive skills are not restricted to professionals. Anyone can recognize tension or fatigue in a familiar voice on the phone. P, because vibes, man. Yeah. I mean, P passed the vibe check. In the language of the two systems or dual process models that have recently become popular, intuitive judgments are produced by System 1 operations, which are automatic, involuntary, and almost effortless. In contrast, the deliberate activity of System 2 are controlled, voluntary, and effortful. They impose demands on unlimited attentional resources. System 2 is invoked, for example, when one performs a calculation, 17 times 24 is equal to what? Completes a tax form, reads a map, makes a left turn into heavy traffic, or parks in a narrow space. Self-monitoring is also a System 2 operation, which is impaired by concurrent effortful tasks. The distinction between System 1 and System 2 plays an important role in both HB and NDM approaches. In the RPD model, for example, the performance of experts involve both an automatic process that brings promising solutions to mind and a deliberate activity in which the execution of the candidate solution is mentally simulated in a process of progressive deepening. I'm starting to realize why Lisa likes this stuff so much. Lisa, my friend who wrote edited the book on money, A Philosophy of Money, she's concerned with the failures of banks and how the banks could do better. So she's probably looking into finance management. It's like, yeah, this is probably what she has to do, like, to prevent like financial disasters. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the finance people are trying to use expert decision making to prevent financial crises again in the future. So this is probably why she was interested in this. Like, I should have known that already. Okay. In the HB approach, System 2 is involved in the effortful performance of some reasoning and decision-making tests, as well as in the continuous monitoring of the quality of reasoning. When there are cues in an intuitive judgment, when that an intuitive judgment could be wrong, System 2 can impose a different strategy, replacing intuition by careful reasoning. Yeah. The NDM and HB approaches share the assumption that intuitive judgments and preferences have the characteristic of System 1 activity. They are automatic, arise effortlessly, and often come to mind without immediate justification. However, the two approaches focus on different classes of intuition. Intuitive judgments that arise from experience and manifest skill are the province of NDM, which explores the cues that guided such judgments and the conditions for the acquisition of skill. In contrast, HB researchers have been mainly concerned with intuitive judgments that arise from simplifying heuristics, not from specific experience. These intuitive judgments are less likely to be accurate and are prone to systematic biases. Yeah, so again, they're looking at different data sets. One of the data sets, the natural decision making, looks at successes. The other one looks at how it could have been done perfectly. And so they're dealing with the people from very different standards of measure. Okay, we discussed the two classes of judgments in sequence. First, we described the process of skill acquisition that supports the intuitive judgments and preferences of genuine experts. In particular, we explore two necessary conditions for the development of skill: high validity environments and an adequate opportunity to learn them. Next, we discuss heuristic-based intuitions and some of the biases to which they are prone. Finally, we address the question of the critique of intuition. How can skilled intuitions be distinguished from heuristic-based intuitions? All right. How much more of this do we got to go? This is page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Basically. Oh, no, 12. Okay, you have to go all the way through the dots. All right, so 12 of 13. We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. Yeah, see, this is the problem. It's too long. Should have known better. Oh, well. Yeah, I'm at 2 hour streaming now, so I'm going to start losing my mind soon. If you need the, I have it on my Discord if you're in my Discord, if you want a copy. This is just the, I gotta update something, one sec, before I forget. Shit. Let me just get that link. Yep. Let's do this one more time, because I forgot to update the title below me before. Okay. Skilled intuition as recognition. Simon 92 offers a concise definition of skilled intuition that we both endorse. The situation has provided a cue. This cue has given the expert access to information stored in memory, and the information provides the answer. What are you doing, Vipers? Intuition is nothing more, nothing less than recognition. The model of intuition as recognition is helpful in several ways. First, it demystifies intuition. Many experts who have intuitions, and some authors who study them, endow intuition with almost magic aura, knowledge that is not acquired by a rational process. In Simon's definition, the process by which the pediatric nurse recognizes that an infant may be gravely ill is not different in principle from the process by which you would notice that a friend looks tired or angry, or from the way in which a small child recognizes that an animal is a dog, not a cat. It may be worth noting that this description of pattern recognition and the skilled pattern recognition described in the RPD model are different from the recognition heuristic discussed by Goldstein and Gigerenzer, which is a special purpose rule of thumb. Yeah. The recognition model implies two conditions that must be satisfied for an intuitive judgment, that's a recognition, to be genuinely skilled. First, the environment must provide adequately valid cues to the nature of the situation. Second, people must have an opportunity to learn the relevant cues. First, for the first condition, valid cues must be specifiable, at least in principle, even if the individual does not know what they are. The child relies on valid cues to identify a dog without any ability to state what the cues are. Similarly, the nurse and the firefighter are also guided by valid cues they find in the environment. No magic is involved. A crucial conclusion emerges. Skilled intuitions will only develop in an environment of sufficient regularity, which provides valid cues to the situation. The ways in which skilled judgments take advantage of environmental regularities have been discussed among others, Brunswick and Hertwig, Hoffrig, and Martignon. Validity, as we use the term here, describes the causal and statistical structure of the relevant environment. Yeah, so it's not enough to be trained. You have to be trained on like the right sort of thing. It needs to be super regular so that you don't have any confusion in your training data. Okay, for example, it's very likely that there are early indications that a building is about to collapse in a fire or that an infant will soon show obvious symptoms of infection. On the other hand, it is unlikely that there is publicly available information that could be used to predict how well a particular stock will do. If such valid information existed, the price of the stock would already reflect it. Thus, we have more reason to trust the intuition of an experienced fireground commander about the stability of a building or the intuitions of a nurse about an infant than to trust the intuitions of a trader about a stock. We can confidently expect that a detailed study of how professionals think is more likely to reveal useful predictive cues in the former cases than in the latter. Yeah. So you need information about stuff that is not really well, stock trading, of course, that's what people say they can do, but they're not going to tell you how they do it, or it would be harder, and it's not expertise in the general sense. It'd be expertise for that stock at that time. But yeah, this is why Elisa's interested right here. Could it actually be done for a stock, or at least the market more widely, I guess. My guess. I don't know if Lisa actually cares about that. Yeah. Determining the validity of an environment is not always easy. Yeah. So that would be the regularity of the environment. Because stocks, of course, have to deal with, like, you know, the entire world. You know, say Israel and Iran go to war. Shocking. And all of a sudden, now defense stocks go up or other ones go down. Who knows what is going to change? When Tetlock, 2005, embarked on his ambitious study of long-term forecast of strategic and economic events by experts, the outcome of his research was not obvious. 15 years later, it was quite clear that the highly educated and experienced experts that he studied were not superior to untrained readers of newspapers in their ability to make accurate long-term forecasts of political events. Yeah, so some things are not regular enough. You just don't know. The depressing consistency of the experts' failure to outdo the novices in this task suggests that the problem is in the environment. Long-term forecasting must fail because large-scale historical developments are too complex to be forecast. The task is simply impossible. A thought experiment can help. Consider what the history of the 20th century might have been if the 3 fertilized eggs that became Hitler, Stalin, and Mao had been female. The century surely would have been very different, but can one know how? In other environments, the regularities that can be observed are misleading. Hogarth introduced the useful notion of wicked environments in which wrong intuitions are likely to develop. His most compelling example, borrowed from Lewis Thomas, is the early 20th century physician who frequently had intuitions about patients in the ward who were about to develop typhoid. He confirmed his intuitions by palpitating these patients' tongues, but because he did not wash his hands, the intuitions were disastrously self-fulfilling. Okay, yeah. So the guy went and actually put his hand in their mouth using his dirty fingers. High validity does not imply the absence of uncertainty, and the regularities that are to be discovered are sometimes statistical. Games such as bridge or poker count as high validity situations. The mark of these situations is that skill and the ability to identify favorable bets improves without guaranteeing that every attempt will succeed. The challenge of learning bridge and poker is not essentially different from the challenge of learning chess, where the uncertainty arises from the enormous number of possible developments. Hey Retheus, what's up? How you been? Doing all right. Reading a paper. My computer's kind of dying, but it's not dead yet, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah. I hope you've been well. As the examples of competitive games illustrate, the necessary conditions for the development of recognition and skilled intuition is an adequate opportunity to learn the relevant cues. Good, dude. This paper sounds rad so far. Yeah, this was suggested to me by my buddy Lisa, who was the editor of the Philosophy of Money and Finance book. So she's interested in how to prevent more financial crises. So I think she's looking into this stuff, and I don't know, I didn't ask her about it, but she likes this paper and she said this is a good paper, and I think she's been trying to figure out how management can use skilled experts to avoid disaster, basically. I don't know. Megalomorph says, I don't know if I agree with that. If Hitler hadn't been there, the conditions that give rise to the development and ascension would still have been there. I don't know what have happened had he had not been there, but I can't take it for granted something would not have taken his place. Yeah, well, that's the general point, is that it'd be just so hard to predict if something different would happen. Yes, the conditions may have been the same, but there is no way we can go back and be like, oh, this would have happened. This is just too complicated. Looks like some kind of World War II speculation occurring. Well, that was just the example of what you can't do. It was the example of you can do that, but it's you have no idea. Hey, what's up, Bowser Big Bean Burrito? There's no way to predict an alternative history of the 20th century, given a few different key people not being there. So, but they were just saying you can't do it. They're not saying what would have happened. Okay. Yeah, so you have to learn, the masters have to learn the relevant cues. It has been estimated that chess masters must invest 10,000 hours to acquire their skills. Fortunately, most of the skills can be acquired with less practice. A child does not need thousands of examples to learn to discriminate dogs from cats. Not knowing is proving the theory essentially, yeah. The skilled pediatric nurse has seen a sufficient number of sick infants to recognize subtle signs of disease, and the experienced fireground commander has experienced numerous fires and probably imagined many more during years of thinking and conversing about firefighting. Without these opportunities to learn, a valid intuition can only be due to a lucky accident or to magic, and we do not believe in magic. Two conditions must be satisfied for skilled intuition to develop: an environment of sufficiently high validity and an adequate opportunity to practice the skill. Yeah, so you have to have the right stuff and you have to do it the right way. I mean, it's like that for anything you want to learn. You have the right equipment and you have to practice correctly. Perfect practice makes perfect. Not just practice. Perfect practice makes perfect. Erickson, oh man, losing my voice. Erickson, Charnas, Hoffman, and Feltovich have described a range of factors that influence the rate of skill development. These include the type of practice people employ, their level of engagement and motivation, and self-regulatory processes they use. Even when circumstances are favorable, however, some people will develop skilled intuitions more quickly than others. Talent surely matters. Megalomorph says, but I'm reminded of how many things in math get developed independently, sometimes the same year, because certain ideas are in the air, pushing people to think in particular ways. I don't like the idea that the world is pushed forward by great people whose absences would have been keenly felt. Vince Lombardi was a football guy. Just because you don't like the idea doesn't make it right or wrong. Math may be I don't know, but math may be an unusual example. There may only be so many things to do in math at any one point. The world doesn't seem like that, though. The world seems like there could be a lot more. Math seems like a narrow subject sometimes. But again, then sometimes someone comes along and blows up a whole area of math. I don't know how that happens. But, yeah. Who said that? Practice does not make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect? Maybe. I don't know. That was my old martial arts teacher when I was a little kid. Yeah. So, yeah, the history of like politics may and like humans may allow for certain ranges of things, but it does feel a bit wider than one narrow subject. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, maybe the Hegelians are right. Like, it will always be like there's some world history going some way, like the teleological theories where history is going in a certain direction. Maybe, but I would. It'd be hard pressed to show that there are necessary sort of things to happen at any given time. It feels like hindsight is 2020, like reading the history back into it, and I don't like. It's if it was actually the case, then the point would be that we could somehow make better predictions, and we still can't seem to predict anything in like these sort of areas. So I don't know. Okay. So talent surely matters, yeah, when making learning stuff. Every normal child can recognize a cat or dog, but not all dedicated chess players become grandmasters. Extraordinary players like Fischer and Kasparov were able to recognize patterns that other grandmasters could not see on their own, although the weaker players could recognize the validity of the star's intuition when led through it. Yeah, so you can learn what they're up to, but you didn't see it the first time. Intuitions that are available only to a few exceptional individuals are often called creative. Like other intuitions, however, creative intuitions are based on finding valid patterns in memory, a task that some people perform much better than others. Alright, so now they're making shit up. They're just saying it's memory, which is nonsense. But whatever. They don't know how to... No one knows how the creativity works. They just said stuff. Yeah. They're no worse off than anyone else. There are large individual differences in performance on the remote association test, which has a long history as a test of creativity. Participants in that test are instructed to search for a common associate of three words. The task has a wide range of difficulty. The item's cottage Swiss cake is easy, but few people can quickly find the answer in the item dive light rocket. Although everyone recognizes the answer as it is valid, it is above us, and blue is... It is above us. What? And blue in good weather. Oh, sky. Skydive, skylight, skyrocket. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the idea that I'm going to get anything while reading after 2 hours of like streaming is like, I'm not getting it. The rat brings us back to Simon's observation that the regularities on which intuitions depend are represented in memory. The situation of the rat has high validity. Widely shared patterns of association exist, which everyone can recognize, although few can find them without prompting. Yeah. Yeah, so if you've taken... I took like a, one of these IQ tests or like Mensa tests when I was like a little kid. It's like you get like these sorts of questions. You have to figure out what the association is. Like, yeah, I don't know exactly what it's doing, but, it's correlated with something. Sort of drives me nuts. And I don't know what the... cottage Swiss and cake is. Cake knife, cottage knife, Swiss knife, Swiss Army knife. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not getting any creative stuff while streaming. Cheese, there we go. Cheesecake, Swiss cheese and cheese, cottage cheese. Yeah, see, I would not get that. Like, streamer brain. Okay. Imperfect intuition. We have seen that reliably skilled intuitions are likely to develop when the individual operates in a high validity environment and has an opportunity to learn the rules of that environment. These conditions often remain unmet in professional contexts, either because the environment is insufficiently predictable, as in the long-term forecasting of political events, or because the absence of opportunities to learn its rules, as in the case of firefighters exposed to a fire in a skyscraper with unexpected damage to the heat shielding of its structural support. Yeah, so when things are very unusual, no one's going to know what's happening. Or very unique. We both agree that most of the intuitive judgments and decisions that System 1 produces are skilled, appropriate, and eventually successful. But we also agree that not all intuitive judgments are skilled, although our hunches about the frequency of exceptions differ. Precision says, is the streaming then, or using the brain power to think about the stuff that gets you? I know it's hard for me to think deeply, or too long I get burnt out. What I'm doing, Persistent, because I don't think you've been around that long, I mention this sometimes. I am reading the paper and listening to myself read. I'm doing like two things at once. I'm basically reading on autopilot and trying to think about what I'm hearing myself read. And then I'm also reading chat. So all of my brain is like being used, and then like try to run all this other stuff. So the idea that I'm going to be able to interpret chat and comment on the paper as I'm reading it in real time. I don't have extra brain space while streaming. And so that's why like I fuck things up and whatever. If I have like time to sit down and read something, like this is always my first read through here. Like I've read papers from people in chat. I've read papers from other people too. I give much better feedback when I'm not streaming. Like just how it is, because I'm doing multiple things at once. Yeah. So, yeah, unacceptable. This is the best I can do, though, Ivan. And you will notice no one else fucking tries to do this. There is no one else, like, very rare. There's only a few other people who have tried, and no one else is consistent about it. So, it's difficult. Luminous says it's really hard, in your opinion, to read straight through without stopping to make sense of the thing you're reading. I do it better than you. Well, I've been doing it for a long time. This is number 530 fucking 4. Like, yeah, 34. Done it a few times now. But like this is why if there's something in the paper like right here that throws me for a loop, yeah, I'm not going to get it. Yeah. And I thank you, Ivan. My effort is appreciated. Yeah. So, you know, like, and I read all sorts of things. I'm better. So I have more background in certain areas than others, and you know, what are you going to do? But yeah, this is why, like, the idea that I'm going to be able to, like, also play, like, a language game at the same time, not happening. Ivan had it published recently in an online magazine. I gave feedback on that one. Yeah, Ivan, feel free to drop the link to your article if you want. Yeah, it was on his, Bayesian argument for evolution. Oh, yeah. It was rejected, so you're writing a book. Oh, that was a different one. Okay. I thought that was the one you had published in the, that, Rationality magazine or whatever it was. But okay. Yep. Well, book it is then. Yeah, see, if it was me, I'd just start cutting out all the different parts I don't like that they criticize. I'll say, can I get away with not saying this? And make the paper shorter and shorter. That's how I do these things. I'm like, no, they don't like it, fine. You don't get to read stuff you don't get to like then. All right. Yeah, so basically they're saying the people, again, this is what part of the crux here, what they're saying right here. Our hunches about the frequency of exceptions differ. So one person's looking at the experts and say they get it right. The other person's looking at the experts and they're saying it's wrong. It's just a, yeah. That was just about Bayesian argument for evolution. The book is comparing evolution versus design. Oh, okay, so part of it got published then. But yeah. You know, some of the nearby ideas got published. You just got a paper rejected? I'm sorry, Luminance. Happens to all of us. It's a rite of passage. I mean, there's only a very, very, very few number of people who never get rejected, and usually that's only because they sent out like 3 things their entire life. I mean, it might be Gettier, who only published like 1 or 2 things. It's like the entire list of people who never got rejected. I remember Einstein got a paper rejected, and he basically responded, I didn't send it to you to reject. If you don't want to publish my stuff, that's fine. But like, I'm never sending you anything again. Yeah. Oh, at least, hey, as long as the reader report was encouraging, that's good then. Yeah. So as long as they're not jerks about it too, I don't feel too bad. I had a paper rejected and I hated what the journal said. The journal said they basically wasted my time. I'm seriously considering never sending them anything ever again. Yeah, because they said they sent it out for review, and then the reviewers rejected like doing it, and then they decided they didn't want to do it anymore. Like they didn't want to send it out for a review again. I was like, well, fuck you. Why did you think it was good enough to send out for a review the first time? And maybe never do it. B. Wittgenstein, just write one small book and have it determine the entire century of thought. Yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, you just don't publish if you want to have a 100% success rate. I mean, that's the only thing. So Wittgenstein, Gettier. I think Saul Kripke may have never been rejected. I don't know. But like he didn't publish very much either. But yeah. I think I asked someone about that, and they said they don't know if he ever got anything rejected. Yeah. All right. But you have to keep moving. I'm running out of like brain space and time for this. Okay, people, including experienced professionals, sometimes have subjectively compelling intuitions even when they lack true skill, either because the environment is insufficiently regular or because they have not mastered it. Reviewer 1 wrote your 5-page paper in response. That's the best kind of rejection. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Lewis described the weaknesses in the ability of baseball scouts and managers to judge the capabilities, contributions, and potential of players. Despite ample opportunities to acquire judgment skill, scouts and managers are often insensitive to important variables and overly influenced by such factors as the player's appearance, a clear case of prediction by representativeness. Yeah. So, I mean, if you might have all seen Moneyball now, where people were using different statistics to predict who was a good player. And so people were just looking at the wrong statistics for actually how to win baseball games. Yeah. Okay, when intuitive judgments do not come from skill, where do they come from? This is the question that students of heuristics and biases have explored mostly in laboratory experiments. The answer, of course, is that incorrect intuitions, like valid ones, also arise from the operations of memory. 3 phenomena that have been discussed in the heuristics and biases literature illustrate the sources of flawed intuitive judgments. Megalomorph says, the desire to have a high success rate reminds me of something I read in A Crime in Japan. Apparently the police have a very high closure rate for murders, but there are also a lot of obvious murders cases that are labeled suicides because they don't think there's anything that close gets intentionally mislabeled. Yeah. So if I'm in New York and basically when the police want something, they start mislabeling crimes. And so the crime rate shoots up. And then when they get what they want, the crime rate mysteriously drops off because they start underreporting crimes. And so it's like you can see it happen. This has happened in the past. So it's like it's just it becomes a political thing. And yeah. It's like, is that good? No. Is crime really any different now than it was? No. Actually, crime is way low now, and the police want more funding, and so they're making a big ruckus about it. But frankly, and it becomes a political thing. Oh, New York is full of crime. This is historically low crime rates in New York. Yeah, it was lower during the pandemic when nobody was outside, but that's it. Otherwise, it's been very low. It fell down an elevator shaft onto some bullets. The police lie never. Yeah, so it's a lot of lying with statistics. So that happens a lot. But yeah, so it's not just Japan. It's here too, and I'm sure a lot of other places. Didn't they need to send in the National Guard to fight giant rats in the subway recently? I didn't hear about that. No. There's issues with the rats too. They've been having a rat problem, but I don't know if it's actually a problem. It's the science actually says if there are rats in your neighborhood, you should really just leave them be. Because once the family moves in, it basically protects the neighborhood. So new disease comes in with new rats. But if you just keep the rats you have, they keep the other rats out. So it's actually we should be more trying to cultivate safe neighborhoods and not killing everything. Because then as soon as the rats figure out how to get around whatever you have, and they will because rats are smart, then it gets worse. Cops need criminals one hand washing, the other just gotta justify those budgets as well. Yeah, there are so many cops on the subway now though. Yeah, and I don't know if it does anything just having them stand around. The rats are more of a feature than a bug. That's part of it. Exactly, Frank. Rats come with humans. We can't get rid of them. It's been centuries and or maybe millennia, and you think we're getting rid of them. And so it's people's biases. We should really be managing our problems, not trying to kill all the rats. But that's socially and politically never gonna work. Viper says, I think of a doppelganger. Really? I've had police in 3 countries stop me because someone matching your description. I don't know. Maybe you're just a bad actor, Vipers. Even the rats have a mob. Yeah. Unreal. Who was I talking to? Okay, this was a philosopher. Straight up, this was at a philosophy thing. And somehow it got brought up. I was like, have you been in fights in 10 countries? And he was like, oh yeah, sure. Or have you been arrested in 10 countries? And he was like, yeah, something like that. I was like, wait a sec, whoa. It's one thing to get arrested in a few countries, but 10? He was like, well, I was in the military and I was like a rambunctious kid in the military. I was like, okay. And he said, like, yeah, I military police were picking me up all over the place. I was like, oh, okay, fine. But like, then he became a philosopher after that. Like, yes. So he was an interesting guy. Okay, Frederick, 2005, considered a hobby at that point. Yeah. Well, people like their alcohol. They like to fight. Like this is how some people have a good time. They go out and they, get involved with the locals. I had a friend who became a Air Force lawyer, JAG, Judge Advocate General, and I asked him once, like he was out in Japan actually, or Okinawa, and I asked him, so what do you do all day? Like, we're not going to get into a fight with Japan. He says, oh, don't worry. The 18-year-olds we have in the military, they're just, being 18-year-olds, like doing stupid things 18-year-olds do. There's always work to be done. He says he actually would be annoyed because he'd be, typing up dumb reports, and then the military would have, do required mandatory testing in case, like, the Japanese attacked the U.S. military base. And so he'd have a gas mask on and, like, a suit on or something for, like, a Japanese gas attack on our military base. And he's like, there is no chance in hell that this is actually what the Japanese would do. And not that the Japanese would ever attack our base, but he was like, they wouldn't even attack this way. But there was still, like, protocol. And he was like, yeah, and I am, like, sitting there trying to type with a gas mask on. It's like, it's bad. But yeah. Okay. So Frederick has studied problems such as the following. A ball and bat together cost $1.10. The bat cost $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? The question invariably evokes an immediate tentative solution, 10 cents. But the intuitive response is wrong in this problem. The correct response is 5 cents. Furthermore, an easy check will quickly show that the answer is wrong. If the ball is worth 10 cents, then the bat is worth $1.10 and the total is $1.20, which is not correct. You're typing with a gas mask right now. Luminance, weed will not make your philosophy better. The surprising finding of Frederick's research is that many intelligent people adopt the intuitively compelling response without checking it. The incidence of intuitive errors in this question ranges from approximately 50% in top undergraduate schools, MIT, Princeton, Harvard, to 90% in somewhat less selective schools. It can be argued that the setting of this problem is not typically of the challenges that people face in the real world, but the phenomena that Frederick studied is hardly restricted to puzzles. A common genre of business literature celebrates successful leaders who made strategic decisions on the basis of gut feelings and intuitions that they did not adequately check, but many of these successes owe more to luck than to genius. Yeah, and this is part of like the cult of personality. Like always got like a brilliant thing. Most of these people got lucky as fuck. What will make my philosophy better, though? I don't know, Luminance. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe weed does help. Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, you can get a gas mask and just, like, fill your entire face with, drugs. The anchoring phenomena is another case in which a bias in the operations of memory causes intuitions to go astray. Suppose some participants in an experiment are first asked, is the average price of German cars more or less than $100,000 before they are required to provide a numerical estimate of the average cost of German cars? Other respondents encounter a different anchoring question. They are first asked whether the average cost of German cars is more or less than $30,000 and then are asked to give an estimate of the average. Neural networks, there we go. Well, I don't know if I've seen any good philosophy that's been generated by AI yet, so I don't know. I mean, if you want a summary of some stuff, the AI does a fantastic job, but I've not read any good AI philosophy yet. It may come. We can expect the estimates of the two groups to differ by as much as half of the difference between the anchors. In this case, the expected anchoring effect would be $35,000. The mechanism of anchoring is well understood. The original question with the high anchor brings expensive cars to the respondent's mind: Mercedes, BMWs, Audis. The lower anchor is more likely to evoke the image of a Beetle and the name Volkswagen. The initial question therefore biases the sample of cars that come to mind when people next attempt to estimate the average price of German cars. The process of estimating the average is a deliberate System 2 operation, but the bias occurs in the automatic phase in which instances are retrieved from memory. The resulting anchoring effect is large and robust. The answers that come to mind are typically held with substantial confidence, and the victims of anchoring manipulations confidently deny any effect of the anchor. The common criticism of laboratory experiments hardly applies here because large anchoring effects have been demonstrated in the courtroom, in real estate transactions, and in other real-world contexts. Yeah, if anyone here doesn't know that, what happens is if you get shown a bunch of things that are very high-priced, you will start thinking about high-priced things, and you will overestimate prices after that for X amount of time. Same lower-priced. And so if you are going to be making a big purchase, you may be prompted in like a real estate office to look at very expensive things to get you to, up your sort of range of what you want to spend. And same thing with a lot of like high pressure sales things. They will do this. For a final example, consider this question. Julie is a graduating senior. She read fluently at age 4. What is your best guess of her GPA? Hype train, really? Yeah. Get the price up. That's true, Ivan. Yeah, Twitch knows about this too. Gamify everything now, unfortunately, is it's happening all over the place. I mean, your phone, all this stuff is using these sort of prompting devices to get you to spend more money. Yes, scam train, really. What is your best guess of her GPA, grade point average? Most people who think about this question report having an immediate intuitive impression of the best fitting GPA. The value that comes to their mind is a GPA that is as impressive as Julie's precocity in reading, roughly a match of percentile scores. You ask Gemini to rank Aristotle out of 5 stars, he got a 4.5. Well, there you go. Now we know, 4.5. I got 3.5 because it wasn't information. Aris got 4 out of 5. Well, that's fair, I mean, Aris is probably, well, I'm not even probably. He is a better streamer in terms of numbers than I am, so, yeah. If you don't overcome your cognitive biases, corporations will. Yes, capitalism will find that gap between what you think things are worth and what they are actually worth, and that will get exploited. And that's why they track you on all the things on the internet, because that's exactly what big tech wants to do. They want to find out what you think things are worth and then push you in that direction. That's how it goes. It's called marketing. Yay. Okay, this intuitive prediction is clearly wrong because it is not regressive. The correlation between early reading and graduating GPA is not high and certainly does not justify non-regressive matching. The process that generates this intuitive answer has been called attribute substitution. The attribute to be assessed as GPA, but the answer is simply a projection onto the GPA scale of an evaluation of reading precocity. Precocity? Yeah. Attribute substitution has been described as an automatic process. It produces intuitive judgments in which a different question is answered by substituting an easier one, the essence of heuristic thinking. Of course, the mechanisms that produce incorrect intuitions will only operate in the absence of skill. If people have a skilled response to the task with which they are charged, they will apply their skill. But even in the absence of skill, an intuitive response may come to their minds. The difficulty is that people have no way to know where their intuitions come from. There is no subjective marker that distinguishes correct intuitions from intuitions that are produced by highly imperfect heuristics. An important character of intuitive judgments, which they share with perceptual impressions, is that a single response initially comes to mind. Most of the time we have to trust this first impulse, and most of the time we are right or are able to make necessary corrections if it turns out to be wrong. But high subjective confidence is not a good indication of validity. Checking one's intuitions is an effortful operation of System 2, which people do not always perform, sometimes because it is difficult to do so, and sometimes because they do not bother. Yeah. So again, what we were talking about earlier, a healthy dose of epistemic humility. You shouldn't be just so willing to go with your gut with a lot of things. But I mean, that you don't always have the opportunity and the time and effort to do the work, but you shouldn't always just be like, well, I like it, so that's the way it is. Classic Simpsons quote, I'm here to lead, not to read. Oh, and also, did you see, I got a, what's it called? Fortune cookie today. Wait, is that in my Discord? I think I put it in there. Yes. Oh, shit. Should not have done that. But whatever. Yeah, so... this is what I got today. Why are you not in your Discord? I don't know. Why aren't you? Yeah, I have a Discord. Basically, I just use it for announcements and getting in contact with me. But, sometimes we chat. Yeah. So, read in order to live. Which I think is kind of like ominous. It's like, I don't really know what this sort of fortune is supposed to mean. But, yeah. I don't quite know. But okay, this is what I got today. Okay. And now I have no idea where I was in this. Okay, yeah. Intuitions that originate in heuristics are not necessarily wrong. Indeed, the original statement of the HB approach asserted, in general, these heuristics are quite useful, but sometimes they lead to severe systematic errors. Yeah, fortune cookie was a little scary there. He who will not read, neither shall he eat. Yeah, I don't know how to interpret that. That was probably this is one of the most ominous fortune cookies I've ever gotten. Lumen says I made the joke already, but I think it's a situation. If the bomb goes off, you stop reading papers on screen. Why? What else am I going to do? I mean, give people the air, Schopenhauer. Come on. You got what you wanted. Give people the air. Well, everyone who hasn't read the fortune cookie is destined to die. I don't know. Is it based on who actually eats the cookie? I assumed that it was at least from Spaceballs. He who cracks the cookie open is the one for whom the fortune applies. You have to open it before you eat it. And so the fortune applies to the person who cracks the cookie open because that's what was in Spaceballs. Lumen's meant to say speed. Yeah. The speed, when the bomb goes off, if the car stops driving. Yeah. Okay, yeah. You think it's the speed situation. I knew you meant that the first time. Yeah. Gotta get out of here. There's a bomb in there. Yeah. Oh, good old Arnold. What was I watching? Oh, I was watching one of the Expendables movies. Not Arnold. It's Sly Stallone. But all those movies are so fun, mindless stuff. Yeah, good times. I mean, they're terrible, but whatever. I don't mind the actors just having a good time making a silly flick. It's okay. I'm in on the joke. No one's expecting it to be a good movie. My governor. What's it called? The Arnold was governor out in California, and my aunt used to teach chemistry in a community college, and all the kids voted for Arnold because they're like, oh, Arnold. But he was running on the Republican ticket. He was doing things that the Republicans wanted. He cut the funding to the students, and they were all sad the next year, and she was like, I told you that you shouldn't be voting for Arnold because he's gonna screw you over, kids. And they were like, yeah, but it was Arnold, what were we supposed to do? It's no, your local elections matter. You don't just vote for somebody because they have a big name. It's actually look at the policy. Mind candy is good sometimes, yes. So am I gonna make a face hugger mask now that I found the pattern? No. I mean, if you look at that pattern, you see it's 56 pieces. And also you need high quality leather that you can form. So it's not just cutting the leather and stitching it, you have to form it. So it's actually a very complicated thing to make. And so that's the reason I didn't do it, because I thought it'd be hilarious to make a facehugger pattern. But it's not trivial. It's a complicated pattern. But yeah. Vote for Predator next time, kids, yeah. America. Mind candy is good sometimes. My shop on Redbubble is called Mind's Eye Candy. So you might see that link go by. But I like that name, Mind's Eye Candy. Okay. Yeah. So the HB claim is not that intuitions that arise in heuristics are always incorrect, only that they are less trustworthy than intuitions that are rooted in specific experiences. Unfortunately, people are not normally aware of the origins of the thoughts that come to their minds, and the correlation between the accuracy of their judgments and the confidence they experience is not consistently high. What do we got? You haven't had luck shortening these URLs. What is this? So here's this. Yeah, so that's my shop there. Celebs for politicians, plumbers for colonoscopies. Yeah. Come with me if you want to live. Yeah, and gotta read the book. So this is me and my fortune today. Value Bond, what's up? Do you ever write an essay and think it's brilliant, and then a couple of days later it's like it's alright, I guess? I used to. I used to be like, wow, this shit's great. And now I look back and it's not so good. Now, and that was in the past. Now I look back at myself, I'm like, that's actually pretty smart. Like, I'm not so dumb. Because I usually move on. I think about other stuff. I kind of forget about what I was thinking about. I'm like, no, I go back and I'm like, you're not like that was actually kind of clever. Good job, me. Of course, I also look at some stuff. I'm like, I could have done that section better. This is weak or whatever. But nowadays, when I'm looking at stuff I wrote, like that's good stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's not terrible. But yeah, I used to do that, but not. It's different now. Maybe you should give yourself more credit. Yeah, it's like you gotta try to be nice to yourself. Try. Not always easy. Yeah. Some of the stuff, like, it's hard, You realize different things later. You're like, that was kind of a dumb idea, but yeah. Like, I was just looking at the paper I submitted, not the one from 2 weeks ago, the one from a month and a half ago, and I was like, this is good. I was writing good metaphysics. I like my metaphysics. No one writes metaphysics. It's like, it just doesn't happen. I was like, and I wrote metaphysics. So it's like, is this brilliant stuff? Yeah, probably not. It's something that other people won't have written, though. It's like, it's just, people are not going to be writing on the phenomenology of diagrams or the phenomenology of notation. Like, really, you have to be an odd person to be like, I'm writing the phenomenology of, like, technical notation. But, like, the reason I'm working on that is because logic, that makes a difference. Like, that makes a difference for, like, diagram analysis. Like, I think that stuff's cool. These days when I look back on the stuff I wrote, I think me and ChatGPT is so much better now. Yeah, that's true. Ivan says, my article that published recently, I wrote a year ago, my newest writing is topic is so much better. Yeah, you get better if you're writing on a topic. Actually, but like that stuff I just wrote, that was something I've never written on, really. I haven't written on that stuff in years. So it's like, I'm like, it's not that bad. Cam froze. Yeah, you're right. Cam did freeze. Can you still hear me, though? Yeah, we can hear me. Yeah, this is bad. I do not know how to fix that. Hold on one sec. Let me try and fix something. The chance of this working is like slim to none, but I have no idea how to fix this. Actually, maybe I can. Let's try. What am I doing? Yeah, that's not good. Okay, I'm back. There we go. Yeah, that's again. I'm having massive computer issues, nowadays. So yeah. You've had luck switching cams and unplugging, replugging, switching cams back. That's literally what I did. I didn't unplug it, but I switched cams because this monitor actually here has a cam built into it. So I switched the cam like that was on this monitor. Audio was off. Really? Oh no. Unsynced. Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, that I can fix. How bad is it? Like audio's fine? No, unsynced is the question. Um, like is it back the way it was before? That was a bad clap. How's it now? It looks way faster now. Yeah, slight delay. Okay, I just put it back to, oh, all right, so how bad, all right, so I put it back, it was yeah, that's a bit off, okay. But how's it, yeah, I just switched it again. This is frustrating. Let's go 500. Oh, it's pretty good now? Yeah, because I can see my video is actually pretty close. Yeah. So this is actually the way it was at the start of stream, which was completely fucked and I had to change it. Now I just changed it back. So that was a good clap. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Yeah, so this is what it was when I started, which was completely borked. Okay. So yeah. So you don't know the quality of the information that you're reasoning with, and that's why your internal heuristics are off. All right. As a result, evidence that is both redundant and flimsy tends to produce judgments that are held with too much confidence. These judgments will be presented too assertively to others and are likely to be believed more than they deserve to be. The safe way to evaluate the probable accuracy of a judgment, our own or someone else's, is by considering the validity of the environment in which the judgment was made, as well as the judge's history of learning the rules of that environment. That's a lot of information to know, unfortunately. But yeah. Professional intuitions. We are, of course, not the first to have identified a regular environment and an adequate opportunity to learn it as preconditions for the development of skills, including intuitive skills. Other investigators have focused on attitude, motivation, talent, and deliberate practice as crucial to skill development. The importance of predictable environments and opportunities to learn them was apparent in an early review of professions in which expertise develops. Chanteau reviewed evidence showing that expertise was found in livestock judges, astronomers, test pilots, soil judges, chess masters, physicists, mathematicians, accountants, grain inspectors, photo interpreters, and insurance analysts. In contrast, Chanteau noted poor performance by experienced professionals in another large set of occupations: stockbrokers, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, college administration officers, court judges, personnel selectors, and intelligence analysts. Chanteau searched for task characteristics that distinguished the domains in which experts did well from those in which experts did poorly. The factors that we identified, the predictability of outcomes, the amount of experience, and the availability of good feedback, were included in his list. In addition, Chanteau pointed to static as opposed to dynamic stimuli as favorable to good performance. Yeah, so if you're getting data that isn't moving around, then you're going to do better than data that is moving around, than if it is moving around. 3 professions, nurses, physicians, and auditors, appeared on both of Chanteau's lists. These professionals exhibited genuine expertise in some of their activities, but not in others. We refer to such mixed grades for professionals as fractionated expertise, and we believe that the fractionation of expertise is the rule, not an exception. For example, auditors who have expertise in hard data, such as accounts receivable, may do much less well with soft data, such as indications of fraud. There are a few activities, such as chess, in which chess master will not encounter challenges that are genuinely new. In most domains, however, and you remember, sometimes people play down to opponents because when you know something about chess, you're used to like the same patterns over and over. Of course, this is not a master, but like my buddy at work, he plays a bunch of chess on like chess.com. He plays, but then he'll play down to opponent because a newbie will play in ways that he's not expecting, and so that will throw him off his game. So yeah, that's you have to like fool somebody and then maybe get them out of their rhythm, and then you have an opportunity to beat someone who's better than you because they get wrong-footed. But that's a new challenge. Okay. In most domains, however, professionals will occasionally have to deal with situations and tasks that they have not had an opportunity to master. Physicians, as is well known, encounter from time to time diagnostic problems that are entirely new to them. They have expertise in some diagnoses, but not in others. Similarly, weather forecasters are more successful in their routine predictions of temperature and precipitation than in forecasting hail. Yeah, if you can forecast hail, like they don't know how to do this. Maybe they figure it out. This is from like 2009, this paper. If you know how to forecast hail, you will be an instant millionaire because insurance companies pay insurance for hail damage on roofs, but they can't tell where the hail fell. So people will scam them by poking holes in their roofs and say, oh, it's hail damage, I need a new roof. And so if you can tell an insurance company where hail fell and where it didn't, then you could cut down on insurance fraud and scams, and they will give you tons of money for the way to do it. I don't know if this has ever been figured out, but I know back in this time period, because I had a friend in this business that hail meteorology. If you can figure this out, you will be like instant millionaire, because all the insurance companies would love to figure out how to do this. I don't know if they ever figured it out, though. I could ask my buddy. I don't think they did. Characteristically, we came to the topic of fractionated expertise with different examples in mind. Gary Klein focuses on the experts who perform a constant task, for example, putting out fires, establishing a diagnosis, but encounter unfamiliar situations. The ability to recognize that a situation is anomalous and poses a novel challenge is one of the manifestations of authentic expertise. Descriptions of diagnostic thinking in medicine emphasize the intuitive ability of some physicians to realize that the characteristics of a case do not fit any familiar category and call for a deliberate search for the true diagnosis. Dan Kahneman is particularly interested in cases in which professionals who know how to use their knowledge for some purposes attempt to use the same knowledge for other purposes. He views the fractionation of expertise as one element in the explanation of illusions of validity. The overconfidence that professionals sometimes experience in dealing with problems in which they have little or no skill. Yeah, so this is the stay in your lane, bro. You think you know everything because you know one thing, but no, you should really stick to what you're good at. Viper says, I sometimes wish I never realized that a 50% chance of rain means your guess is as good as our dude, because it annoys me every time. Yeah. That's one of those, like, yeah, if anything's in the middle, I'm just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Why did you even bother saying? So, like, anything like 40 to 60%, I'm just like, you don't know. Okay. Finance professionals, yeah, so again, this is how I got here. Finance professionals sent me this paper. Psychotherapists and intelligence analysts may know a great deal about a particular company, patient, or international conflict, but they may have received they may have received ample feedback supporting their confidence in the performance of some tasks, typically those that deal with the short term, but the feedback they receive from their failures in long-term judgments is delayed, sparse, and ambiguous. The experience of professionals that Dan Kahneman has thought about is therefore conducive to overconfidence. And this is why, like, Shane's angry sometimes, because he understands the long-term things in society, because he's a historian and sociologist, and he sees the short-term reasoning as silly from what, politicians are doing. And so it's like, this is the issue. How do you get someone like Shane dealing with the people actually in the business? And it's hard. Yeah. These professionals may have strong subjective confidence in their judgments, but we do not believe that subjective confidence reliably indicates whether intuitive judgments or decisions are valid. When experts recognize anomalies using judgments of typicality and familiarity, they are detecting violations of patterns in the external situation. In contrast, people do not have a strong ability to distinguish correct intuitions from faulty ones. People, even experts, do not appear to be skilled in detecting patterns in the internal situation in order to identify the basis for their judgments. Therefore, reliance on subjective confidence may contribute to overconfidence. Yeah, I mean, we don't know where we get our intuitions from. That's why they're intuitions, and that is a problem. You can't tell if you're drawing on intuitions that apply to a situation or do not apply to the situation. The experts that Gary Klein has studied seem less susceptible to overconfidence, perhaps in part because of the direct personal risks it poses. Weather forecasters, engineers, and logistics specialists typically resist requests to make judgments about matters that fall outside their area of competence. People in professions marked by standard methods, clear feedback, and direct consequences for error appear to appreciate the boundaries of their expertise. Yeah, so if you know how to stay in your lane and you have clear markers to stay in your lane, then you stay in your lane. You're like, I ain't making a claim about that stuff. Yeah. I've already done 533 Philosophy Roulette streams. I can read this in 2 hours. I actually was suspecting it was longer. I was deluding myself, but like I said, I started this early. I did, because I suspected I wouldn't. So I deluded myself, but I was not wrong in my estimation. Where are we? We are 3 hours now. Yep. These experts know more knowledge These experts know more knowledgeable experts exist. Weather forecasters know there are people in another location who better understand the local dynamics. Structural engineers know that chemical engineers or even structural engineers working with different types of models or materials are the two experts who should be considered. As in the other topics that we have considered, we find no reason to disagree about either fractionation of expertise or overconfidence. As usual, different rules apply to different tasks. Yeah, oh, the planning fallacy. Yeah. It was just the other one. I didn't quite know how long this would take. It says 13 pages here. The first page is just, like fake. And then it's got a few pages of references. But I was thinking, maybe I was hoping it would be closer to 20 pages, maybe 19, and I could get away with it. But I knew it was going to be long regardless. Because double columned things, you might as well just double it. And so I was thinking maybe 10 times 2 is 20, which is, 4 pages longer than I want to read, but should have been okay. But yeah, it's taken a while. Okay. Augmenting professional judgment, the use of algorithms. The attitude toward the meal paradigm in which intuitions and professional judgments are set in competition is a sore point in conversations between adherents of NDM and HB. The idea of algorithms that outdo human judges is a source of pride and joy for members of the HB tribe, but algorithms are usually distrusted by the NDM community. There is compelling evidence that under certain conditions, mechanical and analytical judgments outperform human judgment. And this is only getting way worse for the, or way better for the algorithms with the advent of AI and our rather sophisticated AI nowadays compared to even 20 years ago when 15 years ago when this paper came out. Like, we're way beyond what they had then. And this is like getting to be, sort of a problem for medical professionals, that the diagnostics of the AIs are way better nowadays. Yeah. The planning in the fallacy, yeah. Okay, Grove, Zald, Lebau, Snitz, and Nelson 2000 reported a meta-analysis of 136 studies that compared the accuracy of clinical and mechanical judgments, most within the domains of clinical psychology and medicine. Their review excludes studies involving non-human outcomes such as horse races and weather. Valuebund says, I think that automatic heuristics are influenced by an individual's conscious logic, as if automatic logic is influenced by practicing logic, or in the case of most people, lack of logical training. Yeah, so there's going to be people who are going to be reasoning incorrectly. And so, again, we were talking about this earlier. Are philosophers better at avoiding logical fallacies? They're better at avoiding some of them, but there's always more ways to fuck up. Like, you don't realize there's always another way. And so it's like, yeah, people are maybe reasoning incorrectly, but like, just because you don't know doesn't mean like you're still gonna like get it right or wrong. And so, of course, there's people who are good at logic and people who are not, but it's hard to say if like really the knowledge of the fallacies is going to help you reason when it's happening. Like, because when it's happening, you have to go quick and you can't be like, well, did I make a mistake reasoning? And that takes more time. So, but yeah, it does help to know. And you're like, wait, that's wrong. I remember once I was making a joke or something, and then I had to like, this is a long time ago, and I'd be like, wait, stop, cancel what I just said. It was like, yeah, just strike what I said, because I was like, that's a fallacy. And it was interesting because I was with this was actually the short time I was in grad school, so I was with some other grad students. Some of the people realized the fallacy and some of the people didn't. So like, some people were like, yes, like we have to ignore what I just said because it was wrong, and other people were like, wait, explain that to me. And then like we had to explain like why that was wrong. But yeah. Will any of us, Vipers, Ivan Neo said, if he gets enough feedback, yes. Well, I don't know. We've got a lot of feedback about this, though. But yeah, even Value says, even logical people use emotional reasoning and other things. Yeah. So we're human. And you might, like, in retrospect, you can point out, like, mistakes. But in the moment, most of us are not, we're like, I'm not using modus ponens, like, according to, like, the laws of, like, classical logic in, like, everyday reasoning. That's not what we do. I can fix her, yeah. Just go look at the Mugshotties Hall of Fame. I might be good, but I'm not that good to fix some of them. Yeah, so. The preponderance of data favored the algorithms, that is, the mechanical judgments, which were superior in about half the studies. The other half of the studies showed no difference, and only a few studies showed better performance by the clinical judgments. Yeah, and that's only going to get worse nowadays, because our current AIs are really good. For example, the tasks for which there was at least a 17-point difference in effect size favoring mechanical over clinical judgments included the following: college academic performance, presence of throat infections, diagnosis of gastrointestinal disorders, length of psychiatric hospitalization, job turnover, suicide attempts, juvenile delinquency, malingering. What the fuck's malingering? And occupational choice. Malingering. I don't know what that is. 4D chess versus checkers. Well, we're getting there. I mean, we're going to have to, people are just going to have to adapt to this, because there's no reason to be ignoring the high quality diagnostics for medical things that are coming down the pipe. That would be insane, because the medical outcomes are going to be way better with the AI assist than the doctors alone. So it's we're going to have to adapt. And this has been this way for a few years too in some areas, and it's just going to get more and more. So we're going to have to figure out what to do. I don't know. Goth girl versus Chuck. Yeah, well, it's what would you rather have? Happy, quiet life, or a big titty goth girlfriend who loves you? Most, people are going to want the big titty goth girlfriend. Viper says malingering, pretending to be ill in order to escape duty or work. Oh, I should do that more. That sounds like a good idea. I mean, I know people called in with, I think I have COVID, when they didn't want to work. I even suggested that to some people, and I think they did it after I suggested it to them. Because, you know what, they needed the day off, or whatever it was, and it's the boss isn't going to question it, so it's yeah. Valuable asks, why are AI faster or better than human brain? Is because it has constant access to information on the internet. I think it's because it's not because they have information on the internet. Is that they can filter out all the biases, the problems that have to do with an individual person that might make you distracted. So it's if a person was trained on good data and they can make a decision, they'd be fine. But doctors are human and they've got all the problems. They've got all sorts of other things going on. So only when you really need to have the AI is unsure, things like that, do you need human intervention now. So for a lot of basic stuff, the AI is just going to get it right based on statistical numbers, at what your numbers are. Now, again, I want the person to still be involved. I want the doctor there with the AI to make a decision, so that the AI doesn't just go off the rails and fuck up, because that happens too. But I want both. But you want the AI there saying, hey, look, these are the indicators, and 98% sure you've got a sore throat. That's all. Yeah, Frank says because AI operate on a narrow field of info. Yeah, it can narrow down the range of salient data points that are salient for the diagnosis. The human brain is basically an organic AI. That's pretty cool. Sure. Ivan says also the performance of neural nets depends on the physical architecture. Human brains have optimization for human data. LLMs are optimized to find patterns in vast amounts of text. Yeah, so that's right. You can specially train data LLMs to do one thing really well. And so if it's something hard for people, we should just offload that to machines. Why wouldn't we? That's a good point, Ivan. If you have something that is just you can train the computer on, like a chess bot, it's going to get fucking good at chess. And it does. Okay. But again, brain is optimized to be poor and alone. That's all of us, Vipers. That's all of us. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of high quality training on that too. One of these days something will happen. I don't know if it'll be good, but society cannot keep continuing with the same shit, because there's too many people that are just unhappy with the way things are going right now. Okay. Yeah, so finding in which the performance of human judges is inferior to that of simple algorithms are often cited as evidence of cognitive ineptitude, but this conclusion is unwarranted. Yeah, we're not inept. Things are complicated. The correct conclusion is that people perform significantly more poorly than algorithms in low validity environments. Yeah, so again, if you haven't been trained on all the good data, and the computer has, low validity environments. The tasks reviewed by Grove et al. Generally involve noisy and or highly complex situations. The forecasts made by the algorithms were often wrong, albeit less often than the clinical predictions. Yeah. So if it's noisy, you still want to cut down the space of like mess, and you leave it to the algorithm to identify as best we can, as opposed to people who might get even more confused. But you need the person there because sometimes the computers will go off the rail if something's really weird. The studies in the meal paradigm have not produced smoking gun demonstrations in which clinicians miss highly valid cues that the algorithm detects and uses. Yeah, people aren't stupid. Indeed, such an outcome would be unlikely because human learning is normally quite efficient. Where simple and valid cues exist, humans will find them if they are given sufficient experience and enough rapid feedback to do so, except in environments like that Hogarth labeled wicked, in which the feedback is misleading. A statistical approach has two crucial advantages over human judgment when available cues are weak and uncertain. Statistical analysis is more likely to identify weakly valid cues, and a prediction algorithm will maintain above chance accuracy by using such cues consistently. The meta-analysis performed by Carolea and Hogarth showed that consistency accounted for much of the advantage of algorithms over humans. Yeah, so people, we have lives, we get inconsistent. Algorithms have no feeling, and they're therefore more consistent. The evaluation and approval of personal loans by loan officers is an example of a situation in which algorithms should be used to replace human judgment. And now we can see the dated notion of this paper, because yes, but this is going to do redlining, and this is going to be, it's like, yeah, you're going to be screwing over minorities because minorities are poor, and chances are they're not going to repay as many of their loans, but that's a shitty way of going about the world. So this is the first time where we're seeing straight up the oldness of this paper, because it's from 2009, I think, and it wasn't a popular thing to, the algorithmic injustice was not yet identified as a way to like people just like screwing over minorities. Okay, identifying the relatively small number of defaulting loans is a low validity task because any of the low base rate of the critical outcome. Valuable, you just Googled what the answer to life is, the universe and everything, and it's good to see Google has a sense of humor. Yeah, but keep in mind that would be the people, like that would not be the Google like standard answer. That would have to be specially coded. So, yeah. So someone at Google has a sense of humor. It's not the actual search, though. Algorithms have largely replaced human judges in this task, using as inputs objective demographic and personal data rather than subjective impressions of reliability. Yeah. They're not objective, though. They're historically based. Historically is not necessarily objective. The result is an unequivocal improvement. We have fairer loan judgments, that is, judgments that are not improperly influenced by gender or race, faster decisions, and reduced expenses. Yeah, this is just before it got abused. This is pre-abuse of algorithms. So this is the, this is still like basically Web 2.0 times before like some of the nastiness of the recent time went in. So yeah, they didn't realize how much abuse could happen. All right, authors' analysis suggests that the algorithm significantly outperform humans under two quite different conditions. A, when validity is low, so low that human difficulties in detecting weak regularities and in maintaining consistency of judgments are critical. And B, when validity is very high in highly predictable environments where ceiling effects are encountered and occasional lapses of attention can cause humans to fail. Automatic transportation systems in airports are an example in that class. Yeah, so this is, now we're getting into the interesting conclusions here. NDM proponents correctly emphasize that the conditions necessary for the construction and use of algorithms are stringent. These conditions include A, confidence in the adequacy list of variables that will be used, B, a reliable and measurable criterion, C, a body of similar cases, D, a cost-benefit ratio that warrants the investment in the algorithmic approach, and E, a low likelihood that changing conditions will render the algorithm obsolete. We also agree that algorithms that substitute for human judgments must remain under human supervision to provide continuous monitoring of their performance and the relevant changes in the environment. Maintaining adequate supervision of algorithms can be difficult because there is evidence that human operators become more passive and less vigilant when algorithms are in charge, a phenomenon that has been labeled automation bias. We agree that the introduction of algorithms and other formal decision aids in organizations will often encounter opposition and unexpected problems of implementation. Few people enjoy being replaced by mechanical devices or by mathematical algorithms, and many devices and algorithms function less well in the real world than on the planning board. Yeah, so that's one of the other things. In theory, things work. In practice, I think, as Ivan Neo was mentioning on his stream the other day, the auto driving car did not drive as well as Ivan hoped it would. On that point, Ivan, if you're still here, I was talking to somebody else. He was really happy with the auto drive test that he got from his Tesla. Granted, he lives much farther away from an urban environment, I suspect. And so in his less urban area, the auto drive did much better, but he was really pleased with it. And then I was saying to him, like, no, I have a buddy, but he's in Chicago. And he said it was not good enough to drive around his area. So it's like, yeah, there's different situations where these things will work, but you have to know which situations are the better ones. It's still not universally applicable. Okay, naturally, we have somewhat different attitudes towards these problems of implementation, with Dan Klein, Dan Kahneman usually viewing them as obstacles to overcome, and Gary Klein seeing them as reasons to be skeptical about the value of formal methods. Despite our different attitudes toward formal methods, we agree on the potential of semi-formal strategies. An example is the pre-mortem method for reducing overconfidence and improving decisions. Project teams using this method start by describing their plan. Next, they imagine that their plan has failed and the project has been a disaster. Their task is to write down in 2 minutes all the reasons why their project failed. The facilitator goes around the table getting reasons from each of the team members, starting with the leader. The rationale for the method is the concept of prospective hindsight. The people can generate more criticisms when they are told that an outcome is certain. It also offers a solution to one of the major problems of decision-making within organizations, the gradual suppression of dissenting opinions, doubts, and objections, which is typically observed in an organization as an organization commits itself to a major plan. Viper says, I've looked every waking of my life. I'm an expert at looking at stuff, but despite knowing it's black and blue, I still can't see anything other than a fucking white and gold dress. I mean, yes, but no also. Like, yeah, if people don't know this thing, it's like Viper sees white and gold, other people see black and blue. Now, I see white and gold at this point too. But it's a question of lighting. Like, it's really just a question because there's other illusions where you can get like color shifts and like different shifts. So it's like, yeah, you're black and blue. Okay, man, my feels. I can only see your blue name on screen though, so I don't know about the black, but yeah. Or bruised, I don't know what it is. But yeah, it's like, yeah, the black is the gold, of course, or it appears gold, but like this is how it looks under certain lighting conditions. Yeah, exactly, persistent. Like people can switch back and forth too. But this is part of our, the way we process things, not being like an expert at like it's at the edge of like what we see. You're an expert at looking at things, but there are ways that things legitimately look both for us. I mean, this is the whole point of my little duck rabbit, is that it depends on how you look at it. You might see a duck or you might see a rabbit. So yeah. Luminance says, I've only ever seen black and blue. I think it's because I have direct access to the IDOS. Yes. Well, Luminance is better off than us. I mean, which one do you see here? Like, are we, is it a duck or a rabbit for you, Luminance? Yeah, neat. And if you subscribe, you can use that emote. Like, why would you, though? I want to get some more emotes. So this is an interesting thing. So you tell people that the project has failed and then they have to explain why. And all of a sudden they come up with better ideas. Yeah. Okay, because it actually is black and blue. Oh, clearly. Obviously. Shouldn't have doubted you, Luminance. Okay. The pre-mortem method is consistent with the heuristic bias concern for overconfidence while drawing on and respecting the expertise of decision makers, a hallmark of the NDM approach. We expect that there are additional methods that can synthesize the strength of the two traditions. So this is a really interesting thing where you say, look, everything has failed, and you have to you tell everyone everything's failed. You have to write down right now why it failed, and you get interesting new ideas, because the way people, once they accept the failure, they have to come up with something and then they can do it. And everyone has to write something down. So you also take out the biases of like whatever. Although, unfortunately, the reason why things fail is like the boss was a fucking moron. I don't think people are going to write that. Yeah, I don't remember. I think I always saw white and gold, but I understand why people see it black and blue. Okay, conclusion. A Viper says, that's the point I was trying to make. We constantly calibrate our sense of normality, which is why we can look at a negative of an image and see the regular colors once the color is removed. Our sense of what is normal at any given point changes. Our predictions, yeah. Dress minus the ambiguation? Let's see. Well, yes. I mean, this is the sale, of course. Like what it is. But it's the lighting conditions that matter here. Oh, man. Okay, I can see my mouth moving at a different speed than the sounds coming out. Alright, so I'm back. Wait, did I show that or not? I am losing it. Oh my god, I have lost it. Yeah, over 3 hours. I'm dying. Dying. Alright. In an effort that spanned several years, we attempted to answer one basic question: under what conditions are the intuitions of professionals worthy of trust? We do not claim that the conclusions we reached are surprising. Many were anticipated by all the other people, but we believe that they add up to a coherent view of expert intuition, which is more than we expected to achieve when we began. Mafiel says, I read somewhere that has to do with the way I see in dim lighting. You see white and gold, the rods and codes don't handle dim lighting or something. Not claiming it's true, but it'd be worth the look for those curious. Yeah. Oh, that's what I expect it to be. All right, so these are their conclusions. We got a bunch of bullet points here. Our starting point is that intuitive judgments can arise from genuine skill, the focus of NDM approach, but that they can also arise from inappropriate application of heuristic processes on which students of the HB tradition have focused. Skilled judges are often unaware of the cues that guide them, and individuals whose intuitions are not skilled are even less likely to know where their judgments come from. True experts, it is said, know when they don't know. However, non-experts, whether or not they think they are, certainly do not know when they do not know. Subjective confidence is therefore an unreliable indication of the validity of intuitive judgments and decisions. Yeah. I think there's a big point. People who understand stuff be like, look, I don't know, and they'll tell you that. People who are assholes just be like, oh yeah, I can do it, it's fine. And then you get screwed. The determination of whether intuitive judgments can be trusted requires an examination of the environment in which the judgment is made and of the opportunity that the judge has had to learn the regularities of that environment. Am I a color realist? I don't know what that means at the moment. Sorry. We describe task environments as high validity if there are stable relationships between objective identifiable cues and subsequent events, or between cues and outcomes of possible actions. Medicine and firefighting are practiced in environments of fairly high validity. In contrast, outcomes are effectively unpredictable in zero validity environments. To a good approximation, predictions of the future value of individual stocks and long-term forecasts of political events are made in zero validity environments. Like color is mind independent? No, I don't think. I'm probably a color anti-realist then. I mean, the colors are real for us, but like, I don't know what the fucking mind independent world is like. Like if, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I might say it's real, but that's just what it is. Oh, beat you white and gold? Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't... Luminance, you know what? I'm not even sure about the question at this point. Yeah. Like, do the colors exist? Yeah, I don't know. Validity and uncertainty are not incompatible. Some environments are both highly valid and substantially uncertain. Poker and warfare are examples. The best moves in such situations reliably increase the potential for success. Philosophy hurts my brain? Yeah, mine too. An environment of high validity. I'm going to be fucked up because I've been streaming for like 3.5 hours now, and it's going to be messing me up. Issues in the framing, yeah. An environment of... See, here's the sad part. I can still do the philosophy after I start to drop off, but other things start breaking. But the philosophy I can maintain. Hurts so good. Something like that. Persistent. An environment of high validity is a necessary condition for the development of skilled intuitions. Other necessary conditions include adequate opportunities for learning, the environment, prolonged practice, and feedback. This is both rapid and unequivocal. And if an environment provides valid cues and good feedback, skill and expert intuition will eventually develop in individuals of sufficient talent. Although true skill cannot develop in irregular or unpredictable environments, individuals would sometimes make judgments and decisions that are successful by chance. These lucky individuals will be susceptible to an illusion of skill and to overconfidence. The financial industry is a rich source of examples. Again, why I think I'm reading this now. Because if you look at the numbers, so many people are always betting on the market that some people are just going to be, by dumb luck, really good investors. Got to get those gains, exactly. And so a lot of people are just going to have like gambling fallacies all the time because they think they're great, but they are actually just, statistically a little bit lucky. It's in the Discord if you can't find it on the internet, because this was sent to me by a friend. The situation that we've labeled fractionation of skill is another source of overconfidence. Professionals who have expertise in some tasks are sometimes called upon to make judgments in areas in which they have no real skill. And I like the idea of stay in your lane, bro, as like part of like the contemporary parlance, because it recognizes this thing. And you don't have to say fractionation. You can just say stay in your lane, bro, and people will know what you mean. Exactly, persistent. For example, financial analysts may be skilled at evaluating the likely commercial success of a firm, but this skill does not extend to the judgment of whether the stock of that firm is underpriced. It is difficult both for the professionals and for those who observe them to determine the boundaries of their true expertise. Yeah, and so you get politicians, they take claims for everything good, and then they deny anything bad was their fault, and this is all politicians, basically. And so that makes it even harder to see what they actually had their hand in. So, and people, they exploit this for that, yeah. We agree that the weak regularities available in low validity situations can sometimes support the development of algorithms that do better than chance. These algorithms only achieve limited accuracy, but they outperform humans because of their advantage and of consistency. However, the introduction of algorithms to replace human judgment is likely to evoke substantial resistance and sometimes has undesirable side effects. Ending paragraph now. Another conclusion that we both accept is that the approaches of our respective communities have built-in limitations. For historical and methodological reasons, heuristics and biases researchers generally find errors more interesting and instructive than correct performance, but a psychology of judgment and decision-making that ignores intuitive skill is seriously blinkered. Because of their intellectual attitudes developed in reaction to the heuristics and bias tradition, members of the natural decision-making community have an aversion to the word bias and to the corresponding concept. Yeah, because the biases are what is good here. You are biased in the correct way. But a psychology of professional judgment that neglects predictable errors cannot be adequate. Although we agree with both of these conclusions, we have yet to move much beyond recognition of the problem. Dan Kahneman is still fascinated by persistent errors, and Gary Klein still recoils when biases are mentioned. We hope, however, that our effort may help others do more than we have been able to do in bringing the insight of both communities to bear on their common subject. Persistent said, my first read-through with you on my first stream with you. Genuinely glad to find your picture. Oh, thank you. There's, I've dropped out. Vipers, there we go. This is all the other philosophers in our crew persistent. I don't know how you found us here, but drop follows. There's the bunch of philosophers in the first two groups, and then some related people in the last message there. So feel free. But here's what we do. We rate the paper now. If this paper had fun ideas and made your brain dance, then you type brain dance, the spelling matters, in the chat. If it made big claims that shriveled up, then you give it grapes. If it was for navel gazing, only for academics, then you give it nog navel. Ouroboros for deep arrangement ideas. Nog scream for existential or artistic drama. Nog turd for all style, no substance, still poop underneath. And nog knife for slicing and dicing arguments. This was, of course, less philosophy and more psychology, but still touched on a lot of philosophical points. So, as always, your opinion is your opinion. You are free to vote as you will. And there's the global vote yay and vote nay. And there's also vote meh. Ivan says, you found through Aerosol. Oh, very cool. So thank you, Aerosol, for shouting me out or whatever you did. So Ivan gives us a yay, a knife, and a brain dance. So fun ideas. It was very sort of like technical argument, so slicing and dicing, and Ivan liked it, gave it the thumbs up. So that's cool. I may end up agreeing with Ivan on this one. That seems like a very, it seemed like a good article. They were discussing different approaches. They discussed how their approaches technically worked and some of the differences between them. Yeah, so this is going to be a, Luminance did not impress Luminance to give a brain dance though. I mean, actually, I'm wondering if I should throw a brain dance on this, because I actually know a bunch of these things in the past. You don't have to that doesn't matter to me. You rate as you see fit if you want to. So I'm going to give it the vote yay and nog knife it first, and then I'm going to decide on the brain dance in a second. So we're going to do this. I am anti-Kahneman. I am anti-Kahneman in... If you think the conjunction fallacy holds universally, then yes, I'm anti-Kahneman. I am not against framing effects more generally. Like, I think it is a thing. It's just, I don't think it's a fallacy of reason. I think it's just more of a statistical problem we have to cut down on. So I am anti-Kahneman in general. That doesn't mean there aren't issues, like, in the area. So I am anti-Kahneman sometimes. But, like, I don't think anything he was saying here was necessarily wrong. Like, I would reinterpret this. But nothing here was, this is talking about two approaches that have been used to study expertise in the literature, and there's nothing as a historical claim that's accurate. Now, are all the claims that they make in this, do I agree with them? No. But in general, like the survey of what has been done and what they think about it, it's fine. Yeah. Ivan says, I've listened to a dozen books on cognition. I appreciate the summary. Yeah, that was one of the things Lisa said about it, was that it was really well written and clear and outlined the sort of the two perspectives in this area. Lumen says, it's hard for your brain to dance and be on Twitch for almost 9 hours. It's not really paper's fault. You know, that's, again, it's the rating you give it is up to you. It's not, like there's not, I don't think of these as like objective ratings. This is kind of how the paper hits you. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a summary with a few sort of insights into the different ways these approaches to expertise matter and what they get right and what they get wrong. So, for that reason, like, this is still philosophically adjacent. How do we actually reason? And that's a question that, like, logic is also trying to answer. How do we reason correctly? And this is a different perspective on that. Yeah, sometimes the writing style is so bad your brain starts spinning. Yeah, that happens all the time. All the time.